G'day world, welcome to my stream. Well, what an interesting week. Trump's got us on our toes, hasn't he? Got us all on our toes. Anyway, so I've been taking breaks here and there. We've been having really hot weather still. So this would be the third week that I've been complaining about the weather and how hot it has been. And so I've been going to the pool and taking like stress breaks and stuff at the pool. And then and there's also a sauna and a spa there. So I like jump in and out and go into the sauna and then get into the pool again and cool down and then get back into the sauna. It's very good. And I've been sleeping very well. I've been sleeping very well because of it. But today there was rain forecast and I was like, well, that never happens. It always dissipates. So I'm just going to go to the pool because I was stinking hot. So I went to the pool early before the stream. And then while I was at the pool, clouds started to gather and I was like, oh, I guess I should head home. So I go to the shower and I'm having a shower and I hear a weird noise on the roof and I'm like, is that the air conditioning or is that rain? And so it turned out, of course, that it was rain. It wasn't too bad at the gym, but then by the time I got home, because I ride a bicycle, and by the time I got home the puddles were getting like deeper and stuff as I got closer to home, and it was definitely that it had rained a bit heavier at home than over near the gym. But it did not flood my room, so it wasn't heavy enough to do that yet. Or maybe he's fixed it. Maybe the landlord has managed to fix it. I'm still not confident. I need to be here and see the quality of rain to see whether or not it's gonna, whether or not my ceiling's been fixed. But yeah. As a result of all of that, we're going no cam today because I was not going to be getting all prepared and do all that. No, it's too hot anyway for any of that. And so we don't need to see me on camera today. And I can just relax and be all sweaty and whatever and wear clothes that aren't great. whatever. I just don't want to be on camera today. My eyes are red and sore from going in the pool. I need to get goggles because I swim about 250 meters and then my eyes just start rejecting it. They just don't want to go any further. And I'm trying to at least build up. I want to try and at least be doing 500 meters, so that's 20 laps of the 25-meter pool. So I want to do 500 meters, and I'm sort of only getting, I did do 400 the other day, but again my eyes were so bad, and since that day they haven't really recovered, and then I keep going back into the pool. So yeah, they're not really responding very well to that. So I think I need to get some goggles so I can swim further. But, it's good for the cardio, good for the body. Water's a very good low impact exercise. So, I just need to cool down. It's too hot. Getting older, it's quite, the heat affects you more as you get older. Oh, it looks a bit cloudy out of one of my windows. Maybe it will storm again. I was thinking, because we were supposed to get, everything's telling me that it's heavy rain is due. And I'm like, okay, it'll probably, maybe the fact that I'm streaming will mean that I'll have to do an emergency evacuation of my room, perhaps. No, I don't know. I looked on the bomb radar and it looked like the part with the heavy rain where they were talking about that, everything, all my apps are saying that there's heavy rain, but the bomb radar seems to look like that the big heavy rain cloud passed us, and there's just these little spotty ones. So I don't think that's going to do anything. They're not going to result in anything significant, but that's all right. Anything to cool it down. It is so hot, and it's still hot, and now it's just sticky hot. Now it's just sticky and hot. That kind of sucks. But does it suck as much as what's going on in America? Let's get into it. So the world news. Well, okay, so what I'm going to do, I haven't got many Australian stories this week, but, and it'll make sense as we go on, I guess, but a lot of this, I've been waiting to actually hear any commentary from our Prime Minister on what's going on over in America and the changes that Trump is making and things like that. And we've pretty much heard crickets, but we'll get into more of that as we go on. And so there's not really much reaction from our government in regards to what is happening and our response to what is happening overseas, over in America. So there is one particular story which we'll get to later, but let's start with the US news. I guess it's the most prevalent at the moment. We're going to start with this one with the tariffs, but we'll move on to the most sort of outlandish news at the moment is his Gaza plan, but we'll look at that a little bit later. And of course, Elon Musk taking over the Treasury. There's been a couple of changes there, so we'll have a look at that in a second. So we're just going to look at, this is almost, this news report is from 8 hours ago, but this happened like almost a week ago, like all this stuff over the tariffs and everything. So Trump got all angry about, maybe they'll explain it in this, but he got all angry about meth on the border of Canada and Mexico, at immigrants coming through from Canada and Mexico and whatever else he was, getting all reactionary over. And so he said that he was going to put tariffs onto Canada and Mexico to try and get them to do something about stopping this stuff flowing into the border. I mean, the US are responsible for their border, and what they let in is what they let in. But anyway, so we'll see. We'll have a listen to what Justin's got to say. I think this is actually a speech from... If it gets boring halfway through, we'll stop, all right?
Thank you for being vital, irreplaceable partners, particularly at this challenging moment for our country. As I announced on Monday, we've reached an agreement with President Trump on border cooperation and security, an agreement that pauses tariffs for the next month, all while... Thank you.
So he's going to put 25% tariffs onto Canada, and they responded with, we're going to tariff some of your stuff. And they tried to, they very much targeted stuff that came from red states, in particular whiskey and things like that. And of course, the response to that was, I'm pretty sure people didn't really like that. But anyway, Canada saw that there was a need to defend themselves, and I think that's fair.
Of course, we will and have committed to jointly tackling the scourge that is fentanyl through the launch of a Canada-US joint strike force, through the appointment of a fentanyl czar here in Canada, but also through...
I love this name, this czar thing that they've got to use. It's so weird that I think that Canada's using that word in jest, because that's what Trump likes to use, the immigration czar. And so I think that they're kind of like, let's do that. We're going to appoint a fentanyl czar and we're going to take care of this.
Continued implementation of our ambitious $1.3 billion border plan. We agree wholeheartedly with our American neighbors that fentanyl must be wiped from the face of the earth. That those heartless individuals who traffic this deadly drug, who cynically profit off the pain and suffering of countless Canadians and Americans, must be severely punished. So this is positive, and it is progress. But at the same time, our work does not take proposed tariffs completely off the table. That's why over the coming month, Team Canada will be stepping up with the help of our Council on Canada-US Relations, with Canada's premiers, Canadian businesses, Canadian unions, Canadian civil society, Indigenous leaders, and crucially, with the help of all of you, Canada's mayors and municipal leaders. We will be engaging closely with the U.S. administration to underscore why tariffs hurt us all and explain that the better path forward for our two countries, the only path for the United States to usher in the new golden age that President Trump desires, is to partner with Canada.
This is what I don't get, because like Trump's very like isolationist, but at the same time he's very much, we're the greatest country in the world, and rather than working with his allies, he's kind of, you know, got aggressive towards them, and that doesn't make him more powerful. That just like turns people against him. Obviously, I mean, I think that Justin's kind of speaking a little bit in jest here. You know, we're going to work with him over the next month. Basically, they want to spend a month explaining to him why this is not a good idea, bro. I don't know if he'll listen, but they have a pause for a month, and apparently all they've offered is exactly what they're already doing. Though I think this fentanyl czar is something new. Like, there is not that much fentanyl coming in over the border from Canada. In fact, there's probably more going into Canada from the US, if anything. Who knows? But I wouldn't... from what I hear, it was like 40 pounds or something, and they busted it, and like it was stopped, and that's it. They've, you know, like, it's not... nothing similar to what's happening over in Mexico. But at the same time, Mexico has like put up a front and said, no, we're going to help stop the fentanyl if you stop the inflow of guns from America into Mexico, which only feeds the cartels that Trump wants to stop. Yeah. Anyway, we'll look at Mexico in a sec. I guess we'll finish listening to Trudeau here.
Not to punish us. This is an all-hands-on-deck Team Canada effort, and unquestionably, that includes all of you. You are the ones who built relationships with the leaders of America's largest cities, who understand the importance of working together. You are the ones who decide whether your lucrative procurement contract goes to a firm in Moose Jaw or Montana. You are the ones who put local diplomacy in action, making it clear that Canada is a friend and an ally, and that tariffs would harm American cities first and foremost. Over the last few weeks... Of
course they will. It's only going to rise prices in America. That's the only thing that it can result in. So look, I'm bored of listening to Justin, but we get the idea. They're going to spend a month explaining it to him and why it's not a good idea. Let's see how China have responded. They've denounced the US tariffs, so he put less. So he put some tariffs onto Mexico, who responded with, you know, we're going to send 10,000 troops to the border. Apparently they already have 15,000, so it's sort of like they were just going to do what they're already doing. And Trump's again paused the tariffs for Mexico. For China, I think it was 10%. That he's done. So, and this is the response from China. China's vowed to impose countermeasures in response to new US tariffs. US President Donald Trump ordered a 10% hike in duties on Chinese imports from February the 4th. The unilateral imposition of tariffs by the US seriously violates World Trade Organization rules. It is not conducive to solving US problems, but disrupts normal China-US economic and trade operation. In response to the erroneous action by the US, China will file a lawsuit with the WTO and take corresponding countermeasures to firmly safeguard its rights and interests. I don't know how Trump managed to convince, like, trumpets that this was a good thing, like, and that they didn't think that it was going to put their price up. I don't know why they think that only the home country or the country that's trying to import the goods into America or whatever is the one that's going to pay, and that's not going to result in rising prices. Like, That's business 101. You just pass those costs on to the customers. Trump's executive order also suspended a duty-free exemption for shipments under $800. A duty-free exemption. And there was something about like parcels got, like they stopped receiving or accepting parcels. Only flat letters you could send. US officials said it was a loophole that allowed fentanyl precursor chemicals to flow into the country. I mean, they're so terrified of everything all the time. And I'm learning slowly through different studies around the brain that it's a brain thing, like how we view the world, and that they kind of see that conservatives tend to see danger and that they want to protect everyone from the danger, but they see all this whereas progressives are more likely to sort of be, yes, that dangerous thing occurred, but you can't live that way all the time, and dangerous things happen, but it's not everyone everywhere all the time, and you can't live like that, you know, you can't. Whereas there's a couple of different chemicals and things in the brain that operate to, obviously, on how we view the world, and this is kind of one of them. The way they kind of view these dangerous things is that they have to stop all of it. They see it everywhere in a way, yeah? And we kind of laugh at them, for example, for seeing trans people everywhere. Like everybody's a trans person to them, you know? And they have this very exaggerated view of dangerous things happening around them, and I guess it's an aversion to change and the unknown, and you know, whatever. I think it's just simple paranoia. It's a paranoia, and when it gets to levels where it affects your life, like to the point that you're reactionary and scared that there's like things happening all around you, there's crime everywhere, crime's coming to get you, you know, immigrants coming to get you and stuff, it's starting to affect your everyday life, and it becomes a mental issue. Anyway, so a loophole that allows fentanyl precursor chemicals. I don't know what the chemicals could be, but they could be bloody anything. You don't know, like I don't know what chemicals are used to make fentanyl, but I'm sure those chemicals also produce other legitimate things, and so, you know, it's kind of like you can't access any of those legitimate things or the chemicals for those legitimate things, because it could be something that is used to make fentanyl potentially. All right. So US officials said it was a loophole. Oh yeah, we just read that bit. The US said China must take adequate steps to curb such imports before tariffs were lifted. And how are we going to know? How is even he going to know, like, whether it's effective or not? The rate of fentanyl use is dropped. I watched last night on Planet America, and they put up a couple of graphs. Chaz is great at putting up graphs and really deep diving this stuff. And fentanyl use and all that sort of thing, that's all dropping quite dramatically, and has been for a couple of years now. And so I'm not sure how you would necessarily see any result of this immediately. Certainly you wouldn't see an immediate result, but like, yeah. How do people get it for legitimate purposes? The chemicals, and what are those adequate steps? I don't know. At some point, the US needs to take responsibility for its own border. We have border security. They scan everything. They go through people's bags. They scan all the parcels. You can watch it on TV and see how it's done. You know, maybe that's what he needs to do. Watch more. If Trump watches more border security, like but Border Security America, maybe, like if there's an American edition, then maybe that would help him to understand that it's hard to get lots of things into the country because it gets scanned. There's people that, and there ain't no woke people there going, oh, look, I see some precursor chemicals here, I'll just let those through. No, because people that work in those fields are generally not left-wing anyway, right? They're not woke. They're not woke. They're people that want to catch criminals, you know? Like, anyway, let's finish the video. So, yeah, so they've got to take adequate steps to curb such imports before tariffs are lifted. But Beijing says the opioid crisis is Washington's problem, which is essentially what I'm saying. They've got to take some responsibility for themselves. And the thing is, they never look at why people, like it gets to a point where there's a base section of the community that are going to use it no matter what, but maybe you've got to look at why. And why, if it is getting worse or if there's this huge problem, particularly in certain areas of the US, perhaps you've got to look at why that's happening, yeah? And work on services and things like that that are going to help reduce it rather than just try. We had this war on drugs for many, many years, for decades now, and it's a health issue. We've assessed that it's a health issue a hell of a long time ago. G'day, Potato Panda. Thanks for joining us. You feel like a lot of narcotics get into the US and here in Canada because of the under $100 rule for packages that don't get searched with all kinds of false declarations. Okay. And that's fair. And that's probably true to some degree. But do they not scan packages? I would suggest that if you watched I'm pretty sure there's a Border Security Canada, that you would see like the postage service and how they scan packages, because in Australia they scan it. Now, sure, things still get through, but they do a pretty good job of like putting the majority under some sort of scrutiny to make and even small packages. A lot of those AliExpress, Temu ones never do. They just pass customs here almost instantly. And they're just AliExpress and Temu. You know, like I don't know if the narcotics are coming in that way though. But I get where you're coming from. But I would still think that there'd be some sort of scanner it goes through. I know that in Australia they put them through scanners, and like if they can't see something, they're going to be even more sus. So if it's like in a package that you can't see through, they're going to be like, well, this is suspicious, and they're going to be more likely to open it. Yeah. But otherwise they put it through x-rays, and if they see weird stuff going on, things that aren't quite what they declare they are, then they question further, they look further into it and stuff. I've watched a few of the border security when I go away to Melbourne. I put on real television and I'm like, and that's what's on. And it is quite fascinating, and it does help you to understand sort of how much effort these people go through, because like I was saying, people that do those jobs, they're cops. They want to catch criminals. They're people that are cop-minded, you know, people that are working in border security and in customs, all that. They're all quite, you know, they want to catch the criminals and they want to stop dangerous stuff from getting in. So I don't think that they're deliberately like let these things pass. At the same time, can you imagine the mountain of mail that there is? So potentially a lot gets in through that way, you know, like you're suggesting, things that are under $100 or personal packages and stuff that are small, because there'd be just so much every day, every single day, you know. But from what I've seen in Australia, it all goes through some sort of scan. At least the international mail does. Yeah? You think there it's understaffing generally. In Canada, you have an app that shows the postage movement down to the second, and you get stuff from overseas that clears in a minute, and it's spooky. That's interesting. That's interesting. But see, that's for you in Canada. But the US is worried about Canadians. I don't understand why. Like, you guys are on the same side. We're all on the same side. So why is he all paranoid about what's coming in through Canada? I'm pretty sure if there's stuff coming in, like you say, it's external to even both of your countries. And we've got an app in Australia that shows the postage not down to the second. It just sort of says, oh yeah, it's arrived at this sort of centre and now it's leaving this centre. Now it's going to the next centre and it's leaving that centre. So we do get those sort of updates, and when it arrives in your town, they'll tell you, oh yeah, it's on the truck coming today, sort of thing. And that's about the level that we get. Not to the level where you see it like clearing customs or anything like that. We don't have that in Australia. They say less than 2% of drugs from Canada to US, but there's tons of guns that get smuggled northwards and nobody says or does anything. And that's the same thing as what Mexico's saying, that sure, maybe, they'll do more to help with the drug problem, maybe the drugs getting smuggled into America, but they're also saying, but America, can you help us with the flow of guns that are coming from America into Mexico, and so I can imagine there's tons of guns that get smuggled into Canada. And do you have like gun laws? I'm guessing you've got some semblance of gun laws. I mean, in Australia, people think that we've got no guns in Australia, and we've got a lot of guns in Australia, but you have to have a background check, you have to have a license, and you have to have a reason. So if you're a farmer that's got to shoot like pests or something, then, and you clear the background check and everything, then yeah, you can get a gun. There's gun stores near me that I could go to, but I would have no way of getting one because unless, I'm a farmer or a sports person, I can't get one. I haven't got a need for one. So I don't have to worry that everybody walking around's got a gun, Canada's really stringent, but you do have a lot of gun owners, generally rifles and shotguns for fun or hunting. Yeah, exactly. Fun or hunting, but like for farm work and stuff, it's needed. It's very, very rarely pistols, exactly. However, most crimes are committed with smuggled American handguns. Yeah, that's interesting. It's not a surprise that the crime part would be committed by those handguns coming from America. But yeah, of course you've got like the rifles and shotguns because people do a lot of hunting up there. It's a, pretty rugged land, Canada, in some spots. And so I can imagine that guns are needed, but you have the background checks, people have licenses and things like that. I just don't understand the free-for-all approach in the US, and look, I'm sure a lot of people don't. And so, it's pretty... All I know of Trump is that he wants to... There's a lot of projection going on. There's a lot of blaming everybody else for what is essentially his problem or the problem of the US. And I just think that perhaps, he can then sort of go, oh, look, I fixed it or something, when he gets reactionary about something that's maybe not a problem as much, sort of like what's happening with Canada at the moment and how y'all are basically offered what you already were doing. You think it's the constitutional rights on steroids, where some states don't even require a check that takes more than an hour. Here it's easily a year-long process. Yeah, I don't know how long it takes in Australia to get a license and background check and everything. But yeah, in America, some states you just walk in, anyone. And then, it's one country, so you can just take that wherever, even if it is against the law. So it just, they've just got crazy gun laws over there. Everyone knows that. All right, I'm going to finish this video. Let's finish the video. This is the Chinese reaction. So they're vowing to take these tariffs to the World Trade Organization. What have they said? The Chinese Ministry of Commerce said, we hope the US will take an objective and rational approach to its domestic issues, such as fentanyl, rather than resorting to tariff threats against other countries. That's right. It's an issue that is America's problem. And sure, other countries, there can be cooperation between countries to help prevent that or to reduce the problems, but ultimately the drug problems within your country are your problem in your country, you know? And they really need to look at some of those underlying issues, the domestic issues that they have in America, so that they can find out why people want to switch off the world and take fentanyl. Trump also imposed 25% tariffs on most goods from Canada and Mexico. This was 3 days ago, this video. And they've responded with 25% tariffs on US goods.
I think there were kind of two.
Missed that last little bit.
I think there were kind of two major.
Whatever. And Mexico vows to do the same.
I think there were kind of two major possibilities. One is what happened with the US-China trade war during Trump's first term as president, which is both the US and China increased tariffs, and then those tariffs have stayed there, and they are now kind of a permanent feature of the trade landscape. So one possibility is that the higher tariffs are here to stay. The more hopeful possibility will be that governments realize the costs that these tariffs may impose and try to reach a negotiated solution to remove the tariffs. So I think the Canadian and Mexican governments will be trying to talk with their US counterparts and work out kind of what kind of a deal could we reach that would allow both sides to remove the tariffs.
Some experts say the executive orders mark a new era of trade war. I mean, we know now that this has been paused. I don't know so much about the Chinese ones. I don't think the Chinese ones have been paused. They say China may retaliate by restricting market access to certain US firms. I mean, China makes everything that they own. Even the Make America Great Again hat is made in China. From what you read in The Economist last week, the issue from China isn't so much the actual finished products for fentanyl, it's the precursors and materials to make it domestically. And that's a lot harder to regulate since those substances are legal. And exactly, and we were just talking about that earlier, like that these precursors can also be for things that are legitimate and legal. So I don't know. I don't know what you need to make fentanyl, but say alcohol is an ingredient that's required. You can't make alcohol illegal because there's so many other legal uses that someone would legitimately need it for. And so, yes, it becomes an incredibly difficult thing to police. And that's where I guess, they should be, I guess, keeping an eye on what people order and stuff like that. If someone's ordering a whole lot of fertilizer and some other thing, and so I don't know what you need to make a bomb, but I know fertilizer's involved. If someone's ordering like great quantities and many, and all the different ingredients needed, then maybe they need to be looked at, So I don't know. I'm sure criminals have got ways that they get around all of that sort of thing, but ultimately I do think that it's a health issue and also a crisis in so many other social ways that Trump is never going to acknowledge or look at, like housing, for example, low wages to non-existent wages in America. That's how I look at America's payments, how much they pay their workers. Complete disregard for the existence of an ordinary person. These things drive people to want to take drugs, but they've got no interest in fixing any of that. They're no interest at all. And so that's where you just then end up with people using because they need an escape. That's why people are addicted to the internet, because they need an escape. Or addicted to games, need an escape. You think the knock-on effect for a lot of these tariffs is that it will hurt the poor and make a lot of people's lives even more miserable, which oftentimes leads to people, that's right, wanting to seek substances as a way of coping. That's right. Or drinking. People drink alcohol and also, you know, and you'll just end up with more alcoholics. Yeah, of course, it's just a knock-on. There will be a knock-on effect. But let's just hope that Trudeau can get Trump to see some reason over the next month and drop this silly tariff idea. I guess, you know, he's trying to prove himself a tough man, I guess, in the eyes of his followers, and that's one of them that he used. In the meantime, Australia, we're just sitting here saying nothing. We're proud and honoured to have been invited to the inauguration, and we feel so privileged. And we can't wait to work with the administration, the incoming administration. Yeah, that's what we're saying. While we're going to look at this one. So this is a pretty major one that he did. So he announced that he wanted to just level Gaza, move the people out to Jordan and move the people into Egypt, and level Gaza and turn it into a lovely, you know, seaside resort. Which has, of course, outraged everybody because it's essentially ethnic cleansing, and that's, you know, it's completely illegal. So you don't think he'll go through with it in the end, but the tariffs, but he'll flog you with the threat. And I think that it's important that countries like Canada target things like the whiskey that comes in from America, because you're targeting a red state product, and, you know, put tariffs back onto them, you know, because I've got I don't know that it's an extreme view, but I have a very stern view about all of this, and I think he's made it clear that it doesn't matter whether you're friend or foe. And so I think that countries need to stand up and assert themselves at least a bit. And that's certainly what I saw of Canada, you know, when they sort of stood up and straight away with 25%. And we saw that with Mexico, and she was like, no, we're not doing the Gulf of America, for example, and things like that. So people need to push back. I'm not sure he's used to people pushing back or countries pushing back, and I think that allies other than America, obviously, we need to shore up our ties and you know, be as one in expressing our outrage against some of this stuff that he's done. So you think the idea of it shutting down the car industry and driving fuel costs up would make most Americans very unhappy, since they're so important to people who have zero public transport or live rurally? Yes. Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. I would think that Canada would have put some sort of tariff on the energy or something, or maybe like threaten, because I believe that they're providing like energy into America of some sort, and I'm like, well, doesn't that give you like a playing hand? But from what I know, they just offered him what he already had, and he was happy with that for now. Let's hope. But I just think he just shoots shit and just sees what sticks, and this is one of them. Your region that produces oil is very cozy with Republicans. Always is, isn't it? That's the same here, where they mine and do shit. That's all with Republicans and, well, conservatives, you know. And they said that they wouldn't be pleased with the federal government if they did so. Our provinces are very strong here. Right. Yeah. What I like about Canada is that you all get a bit of a payout, at least, for the resources that these oil companies steal from your land. We pay them instead. We give them our taxpayer money in Australia. Yeah, please dig more up. All right, so he's suggested doing this to Gaza. Let's have a look at the global outrage.
Donald Trump's plan for Gaza may have stunned the world, but the reaction has been less surprising. Condemnation has come from far and
We get very little. The companies rape and pillage. That's right.
wide.
Exactly.
After the US president
of course,
revealed the
yes, you do. Oh, I see. It won't let it through. The bot's not letting you through. We'll go allow. I get you. But you at least get something. We pay them. We pay them to dig it up.
proposal to shift Palestinians and then take over the Strip.
This is crazy.
While some claimed it is tantamount to ethnic cleansing, our leaders spurned the opportunity to slap down Australia's strongest ally.
Just a day after setting off collective gasps with this.
The US will take over the Gaza Strip and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it.
The White House press secretary was on cleanup.
The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza.
But this apparent retreat
I'm going to be wanting to wring that woman's neck, I swear, by the end of 4 years.
It hasn't exactly reassured people, including close allies.
They must be allowed home. They must be allowed to rebuild, and we should be with them in that rebuild on the way to a two-state solution.
Any forced displacement of people is tantamount to ethnic cleansing.
Our leaders loathe to criticise Trump, but are certainly a long way from endorsing his plan.
We will continue to take our position, which is what we have done for a long period of time. It's a bipartisan position for a two-state solution.
I don't believe that the Americans have any intent to act outside of international law.
Having moved in lockstep with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu since the October 7 attacks, Jews in Australia say they're mortified at the idea Palestinians might be forced out.
Nobody supports that. The region's already seen more than enough ethnic cleansing, and we know that that's not the recipe for peace.
Time, the missing ingredient, according to the US president.
Everybody loves it, but this is just not the right time.
Middle East leaders say that will never arrive. And those in Gaza are just as defiant. We are staying until our final breath, says this Palestinian man. A sentiment echoed by the millions who call Gaza home, who are now nervously waiting for Donald Trump's next move. Catherine Firkin for 10 News First.
It's just incredible. He just doesn't, I don't think he puts the time in to figure out any of this stuff, like actually become learned in any of it. And so he just shoots shit and doesn't even realise. He didn't even realise, I believe, that he was advocating for ethnic cleansing, you know. You think this is the Israeli method of reasoning the Palestinians out of the Strip while making the ire of the world go away, since it's the US doing it? You don't believe that in 5 years' time there'll be Palestinians there, no matter if it's US or Israeli control. The modus operandi of the two is to make it part of a greater Judea. Absolutely. The Sinai will probably be their home. I agree. They are. So I think it was Hassan said this morning. So Hassan Piker, I was watching, and he was saying that the idea is to move the Palestinians out of Gaza into these other two countries, and then you might be able to, in a couple of years, go, now those countries are dangerous because they have these dangerous elements in them, yeah? And now we can invade them too, bringing to reality greater Israel. You know, potentially. I think that it's, I don't know. I'm just waiting for someone to stop them, but who can stop him? Who's got the plan that's going to stop this from happening? So I'm incredibly disappointed in Anthony Albanese. Why has this popped up? Skip for now. Here we go. This is the Prime Minister of Australia. He refuses to give commentary on Donald Trump's world-altering plan to take over Gaza. He just goes, we're just going to stick to our plan. We agree with a two-state solution, and that's it. And the thing is, like, he's given no commentary. He goes, oh, I'm not going to give a running commentary on what Donald Trump's doing. And it's like, but you have given no commentary. Since the day Elon did a Nazi salute, you have said nothing. All you've said is you're honoured, you're privileged, and you're happy to work with them, you know, and I want to hear and see action. I want to hear even some words that say it's unacceptable and offensive, you know, what they're suggesting. I want to see my leaders standing up for our other allies as well, you know. I want to see him have a voice and assert a little bit of what Australia thinks. And I want a withdrawal from AUKUS, because I don't want to give 368 billion taxpayer dollars to Nazis. You don't see Jordan taking more, especially after the fiasco with the PLO, or Egypt, or potentially Lebanon. They're very alone, and the world simply doesn't care, sadly. It's vital how the interest of the world wanes when the news media changes the story. The UK created Israel and has done nothing to really defend the mandate or anything else. I agree with you so wholeheartedly, Potato Panda. It's quite sad. And once the ceasefire set in, I noticed that there was just kind of like a collective sort of sigh of relief, and then it drifted out totally out of the news sort of thing. It was like, oh, here's some pretty pictures of people going home, walking home along the beach, and it was like as though it was over. And it's not over. I mean, they just went and started bombing Jenin more than they had been. And, you know, doing more incursions into the West Bank and stuff like that. Like, so it hadn't really stopped. But because they sort of did this ceasefire, it was enough to switch that news story, like what you're saying. Once the news changed that story, so they reported the ceasefire, and then it was like, it's over now. But it's not, and we know it's not. And they just keep treating it now like it's over. And this visit, the first foreign national that's gone, first foreign prime minister that's gone to visit the US is Netanyahu. And Netanyahu, we know he took on this ceasefire because Trump was going to support him in what was coming next. And I've even heard Trump saying that he's willing to sort of, that this, when they take over, when the US decide they're going to take over, whatever that actually means, Gaza, that it would be happening after the fighting ends. So, you know, like the last ceasefire. And I knew that this was the case for this ceasefire. It was going to be something where they just continue once they get a certain number of hostages back, or maybe the ones that they know are alive. Anyway, so Anthony Albanese has refused to give commentary on this, and I think that he needs to. We need to start. I'm not going to read this article, but I'm more using it as evidence of the fact that we're hearing nothing. He's like, I'm not going to give a running commentary, but we've had really no commentary at all. We're just going to continue being the lackey. And Anthony Albanese has proven himself to just be so weak in this, and everyone already thought he was weak, and he's not improving this now, you know. The Israelis with Bibi and his bestie Trump really allows them to get away with a lot more than they did with Biden, who was a ready enabler for a lot of the atrocities. That's right. Biden really probably could have stopped it, and it wouldn't have really made any difference. Maybe even it wouldn't have made any difference in losing votes. It may have actually gained him votes if he'd got a bit heavy on BB over Gaza, but he didn't. He just kept giving him guns. He stopped one shipment of 2,000-pound bombs or something. You really see zero benefit for Gaza Strip owned by the US. They have Puerto Rico or Guam and do little with them, let alone a rubble-filled area with a hostile populace. I just think it's an excuse to really just hand it over to Israel. Like, they might have the US there. It is beautiful property. I mean, I've been watching a few videos of it before they went in and leveled it like they already have. And they had built up quite nicely. It was beautiful. It looked like a tourist resort. So I can certainly see the appeal for a real estate developer, you know, like what he might see in it. But he certainly does not intend to have Palestinians move back in there. He's gonna build a Mar-a-Lago in Gaza, and it's going to be for specific people of the world, not those people. So yeah, this was just to prove that my PM's basically saying nothing. We're going to have a little look here. Now, can I make this a bit smaller so that we can all see it? That's better. So this is the current situation in Israel. I don't know whether to read it. It might be a bit long. There might be a ceasefire, but the people of Gaza are far from free. This is a brief look beyond Israel's fortified border wall. While Donald Trump says he has grand plans to redevelop Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East, the reality is the small territory is still home to a population of Palestinian people who are just trying to survive. The Israeli bombardment may have stopped, but the partial blockade of Gaza hasn't, and the millions of people there remain cut off from the rest of the world. And I'm certainly hearing that they're still having trouble getting USAID. They're trying to get aid in there. Sorry, not USAID. Trying to get aid in. I know UNRWA's still banned, you know, and I know that there have been some claims that they haven't been letting in the aid that they said they would. So they are breaching the ceasefire on that behalf, and also blockading some of the entry parts for this. Your question is, even without a US takeover, who will fund the rebuilding? You see Arab League as profoundly weak. They have little in terms of allies, and it scares you to think of it being left alone and basically sitting as a starving island of sorts. I mean, look, I don't know. I don't have the solution for it. I know that, and I know why the other countries don't want to take them. Like, why should they take them in? How would we feel if someone came and said, well, you just go and move over to that country instead, you know? And uproot their entire lives and take millions of people that just want to stay in their homeland. And so I can understand the Arab countries supporting that, because it's just they've got to a point. They've learnt the lesson, give an inch, take a mile. They've learnt that over and over and over again. And so they know that it's just talk when he says that the Palestinians will be allowed to go back. Like, Syria's already got like 1.5 million, and Jordan's already got like 1 million or something Palestinians that are refugees there. It doesn't stop, you know, and they never return. They never return back, you know. So I think that at some point these countries just sort of go, no, enough is enough. You need to, I mean, it's just terrible that some people can't leave people alone. Anyway, but the Israel wanted to really leave Gaza alone, to the point that it was basically being sanctioned because Israel would just had a blockade around it, apartheid, effectively apartheid. As the world contemplates Trump's proposal to take over Gaza, level it and expand his real estate ambitions, the very real and uncertain work of getting vital aid to the population goes on. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has been in force for almost 3 weeks, and it has allowed for hostages to be released. Gosh, it's been 3 weeks already? Doesn't feel like it. And it's allowed for hostages to be released and an increase in aid to enter the Strip. But that access is controlled by Israel, and any movement further into the Gaza is still very heavily restricted. Exactly. And so, it's basically down to, I think it's the World Food program or something that's distributing, whereas UNRWA used to do that job, and so this aid is not being distributed even as fast as it could be because of the ban on UNRWA. It's not possible to enter Gaza directly from Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces still control land crossings on 3 sides, and that's why ABC's travelled east to Jordan. Doubling back, we travel southwest over southern Israel and into Gaza, hitching a ride on a mercy mission on board a Royal Jordanian Air Force Black Hawk. For 8 days, there has been a relay service in the air above Jordan and Israel. On each leg, 2 helicopters fly in tandem. Okay, 8 flights going in, loaded at the King Abdullah Air Base near Zaqara, just outside Jordanian capital Amman. The journey to Gaza takes about 3.5 hours. Under ceasefire, more aid is able to be taken into Gaza, and the helicopters carry about a ton of aid into Gaza. The journey into Gaza and back takes about 3.5 hours, and as the crews travel towards the border, the scale of the decimation starts to become clearer. During the war, Palestinian journalists risked their lives to send news of the devastation out of Gaza and bring it to the attention of the world. And there's been more journalists killed, not just Palestinian, just more journalists killed in that conflict than any other conflict in history. This mission is an example of just how difficult it is for Western journalists to get in to tell that story to, and the powerful military that's standing in the way, getting aid into Gaza. Who would pay for the rebuilding? Well, that's why they're not going to rebuild it for. They're not going to rebuild it for Palestinians. They're going to rebuild it as a resort so that rich people can live there, and that's if they bother to do anything with it at all. With the ceasefire, it implies a status quo of sorts, or a pause, not a victory for the Israelis, so the threat of Hamas is still present. Well, Hamas increased its membership, from my understanding, because of it. Not because of the ceasefire, because of the war. It hasn't endeared anyone to Israel. Have just become more, angry about it. This is how we create more and more terrorists. So no, it's not a victory for the Israel. So the threat of Hamas is still present. I don't think it's possible to get rid of Hamas, which in a lot of ways tells me that the aid will not be properly dispersed. But the Israelis still have a way to re-escalate at any time if they so please, of course. Have you heard how many hostages are still held? Once they're totally free, I can't see the Israelis stopping. To be frank, they need a boogeyman now that Iran is weaker with Assad gone. But Iran's still a boogeyman for them. They can still point to there's the boogeyman. They do still point to it. I don't know how many hostages. Let's look it up. How many hostages remain in Gaza? 76 still unaccounted for. This is 6 days ago. When was this one? Let's have a look. We can open 2 and get a general idea, because this one doesn't want to let me read. Hold on. Open in private window. Oh, you can't see it. Says there's 42 they believe are alive, but Israel has not given the full basis for its estimate. So Washington Post says there are 42 remaining hostage in Gaza. This one was 6 days ago. 6 days ago there was 76 unaccounted for, 32 alive. 42 that are still alive. So a number dead there. what is that, like 34 dead? All right. Oh, that's for later. There we go. So we're looking at we're looking from the distance into Gaza. At first you can see grey and brown shapes in the distance. Oh, wow. Getting closer, the mangled wreckage starts to come into focus. The skeletons of buildings with bombed out windows and walls surprisingly remain standing, while others are piles of rubble. This is just a small sliver of the more than 360 square kilometres that make up the occupied territory of Gaza. The helicopters are packed to the brim with medical supplies as they make a journey from the military base just outside Amman towards a landing pad inside the Gaza border. Look at that. Scale of devastation is clear from the air. Images you see on TV, all this is just like down. This is a camp of some sort over here. The destination's a buffer zone that Israeli Defense Forces withdrew to as this ceasefire came into force on January 19, maintaining control of the land along the border's fence. In Israel's words, it's about protecting the communities on the other side who bore the brunt of Hamas's deadly October 7 attacks. The legacy of that day, when almost 1,200 people were killed, according to Israeli authorities, is still front of mind for the country. The aid that needs to be rushed into Gaza is a reminder of the almost unimaginable toll the Palestinian population has paid as a result. More than 47,000 have been killed, and many more suffered life-changing injuries during the Israeli bombardment, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. As we fly over the fence line, it's a no man's land. So this one, the aid helicopters fly over Jordan into southern Israel and on into Gaza. Restrictions on aid deliveries are still in place and are tighter than they were before the war. Verdant agricultural areas in Israel fade quickly into sparse no man's land on Gaza's side of the border fence. Where's the fence here? Is this the fence? Or is this the fence? Just... Excavators have cut access roads through the dirt on both sides of the steel and barbed wire. On the Israeli side, there are agricultural fields leading up to the barrier. Right. On the Gazan side, what was once farmed land is now something far less cultivated. This aid is being flown in because of its high value and high demand, with agencies not wanting it sitting on trucks and on highways for hours on end. Our access and the access of this aid mission is restricted to one small corner of Gaza. Each day, the Jordanians communicate with the Israelis about their flights. If the IDF says they're not allowed in, the Jordanians say they cannot fly. But the Royal Jordanian Air Force want to fly. The Royal Jordanian Air Force Ace Squadron trained to fight ISIS from the air. They are now kept busy with aid deliveries. It's almost akin to the Berlin Wall in a way, zero entry and guns at the ready. Exactly. It is. The irony is just so insane. And as comfortable as they are with their mission, they're wary too that one slip could trigger Israeli pulling its permissions. Before the ceasefire came into force, aid was entering Gaza, but it was much less than what humanitarian organisations said was required. Warnings were issued about the healthcare system collapsing and starvation becoming the norm in some parts of the territory. The Israeli authorities publish how many tons enter the strip. Late last year, their own data showed deliveries had dropped to levels drastically lower than before the war, prompting global outrage and threats from Biden White House to halt military support to the IDF. Israel maintained supplies were getting in, but it was the fault of humanitarian agencies for not distributing it. The response was telling that Israel's ongoing strikes made that task too difficult. Since the pause in hostilities, the situation's improved, but restrictions are still in place, and they're far tighter than they were before the war, when Gaza was already described as the world's largest open-air prison. Exactly. This one's talking about the pilots. The pictures are great. Medicine coming in. Helipad in Gaza is close to an Israeli watchtower. Dropping off aid boxes and they get back into the air. Trucks waiting to collect the aid and deliver it to hospitals and clinics across Gaza. International media unable to access Gaza. For the duration of the war in Gaza, Israel has kept tight control over everything going in and out of the territory, even before Hamas's October 7, 2023 attacks, which served as a catalyst for this latest war. Israel called all the shots. Over the past 15 months, however, the only media access into Gaza has been limited to shore overland trips alongside Israel Defense Force personnel. And many outlets have not been able to secure spots on those trips despite repeated requests. Last year, the Foreign Press Association in Israel petitioned the Supreme Court demanding passage for journalists into the Gaza Strip. The case was rejected, but since the ceasefire came into force, it has reiterated its calls for access. These unprecedented restrictions have severely hindered reporting, robbing the world of a full picture of the situation in Gaza and placing an undue and dangerous burden on Palestinian colleagues in the territory. And that's the thing, if they're not going to let the journalists tell the story, then we'll make the story up, won't we? The even more uncomfortable comparison is the Warsaw Ghetto, and I'm sure a lot of Israelis have relatives who endured that. There are the similarities are uncanny. Exactly. And that's very true. The whole thing is just so, like, I don't know. It's just so hypocritical. You know, like how they can't understand or see that what they're doing, you know, is akin to what happened to them. I don't know. And how that pointing that out is just results in people accusing you of anti-Semitism, you know? It's just insane. Like, when I learnt about what happened to the Jewish population in Germany during World War II, you know, and my grandfather fought in World War II, and I learned about it, and I learned about the never again thing, and I believed that it was that whole thing, never again, was a lesson that we had learned as a world civilization, that we will not allow this sort of thing to happen again. And I believed that applied to everybody. That's how I learnt about it as a young person. And so it's shocking that some people are unable to apply that to everybody, you know, in an equal way, like, and feel that just as humans, that's not how you treat humans. It's not how you treat our fellow human. These journalists have risked their lives to keep the world informed of this crucial story. With a ceasefire now in place and military activity scaled back, there is no justification for any further delay in granting access. It's another reason why this trip with the RJAF is novel. However fleeting, it is an insight into the devastation in the occupied Palestinian territory. Middle Eastern nations have wanted to shine a light on what's occurred in Gaza, and international media have been keen to see it too. Bit by bit, that pressure has been building, although Israel shows little sign of yielding and throwing open the gates. So access to Gaza, tightly controlled, always has been, and is only worse now. Wow, look at the gates. Yeah, definitely concentration camp level stuff going on here. It's just all right. I'm done with this story. I wanted to show the pictures. I thought the pictures were interesting. And just we haven't covered Israel for a while, like in any depth. And I thought that, you know, obviously with Trump's announcement, that was kind of pretty good opportunity to revisit the story and touch base with what's happening there again with the ceasefire. I'm glad that it's holding. I would say it's holding longer than I thought it was gonna. As someone of German heritage who partook in some of the German heritage partook in some of the unsavory parts, it's scary that you can see an increase in anti-Jewish sentiment in Central Europe as a result of a regime's choices, and the whole Jewish people suffer now outside of Israel as a result. Exactly. We've got anti-Semitic attacks happening here in Australia. We've had some anti-Islam attacks as well. So there's both happening. But when they're screaming when they go, that's anti-Semitic at everything, it devalues the word. And so when there's real anti-Semitism, it's no longer as powerful, like no one cares as much. We've devalued the word so much. And now you've got the president's best friend and the presidential inauguration throwing up a Nazi salute and everyone making excuses for it. This is crazy. Like, that's crazy. Just crazy. You know, and so and that's a result of that, you know, weakening the actual meaning of anti-Semitism in the end. All right, we're going to move on from Israel and Gaza. We're still on Trump because, you know, he's our ally, and I feel at this stage that's not a good thing for us. Like, we need to act now. He's proven he's not friendly. He doesn't understand what allies are. He's proven that he's, you know, doesn't care about friend or foe, and I think that in the end, it's important to act now rather than capitulating before you have to do it. Like it's inevitable. It's inevitable. We've got 4 years of this, and we're only in week 3 of Donald's like crazy fucking executive orders. And the thing is, the American judicial system is too slow to stop this. So as they pull apart all the systems that were in place that took years and years to build and establish, and all the rights that people fought for years and years and years to establish, they can pull them apart within a few weeks. It takes years and years to fight it in court, and by then it's too late because it's already dismantled. Everything's already dismantled and destroyed. Right? And so I think that allies need to, you know, pull back, reassess the relationship with the US for the next 4 years and perhaps beyond if he lets them vote again or not. And we need to shore up our ties with our allies and defend our allies. Say, hey, don't treat our allies that way. We're friends. Why are you treating allies that way, you know? So it's incredibly scary. And look, frankly, once Elon threw up a Nazi salute, we should have disconnected entirely, straight away, immediate. That's my opinion. I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. And then, you know, everyone made all these excuses for him, and he just went, and he never said that he didn't do that. He just said, oh, they're, you know, coming up with bad tricks or whatever his response was, and then proved that he was by going and supporting this German far-right political party. you know? And so I think that it's quite clear who he is, you know, and that we don't need to be making excuses for this adult anymore. This very successful adult man does not need everybody putting kid gloves around him, wrap him in a baby blanket and, you know, be careful with him because he needs kid gloves. No, it's a grown man and he has shown us who he is. And I think that people, governments in particular, or my government in particular, are listening. They're trying to do some diplomatic thing that's not the answer when the inevitable is going to be true. What have you said? I think the EU needs to cease being so... Oh my gosh, you've used a big word that I don't understand. I'm going to look it up right here for everybody, for anyone that's watching. Parsimonious definition means cheap. Unwilling to... Oh, like a miser. Okay, cool. I love it. Where are we? Where were we up to? We're up to here. Let's close, Anthony. All right. I think the EU needs to cease being so parsimonious with their militaries, and the UK, Canada, EU, New Zealand need to diversify their trade amongst each other to offset a hostile US. Instead of doing this post-Cold War sleepy mode that most have engaged in since the fall of the USSR. Exactly. I do. And I think that I agree with everything that you've just said. I've been posting about this on my Blue Sky, like, they're all Nazis. Let's make friends with our friends, you know, like saying to my Prime Minister, because he's got a Blue Sky. And so I've been like, you know, why? Let's shore up our allies. Let's go and, you know, EU, UK, Canada, all these places all think like us. And I do think the inevitable is he will turn on us. He turned on us last time he was in power. He turned on Australia. And at the time, we had a conservative government that look at him like he is awesome. So, and he's still like had a falling out with them. So I don't see any chance of us getting through the next four years without him becoming, you know, shitty about something that we say. So I just think we should deal with it sooner rather than later and, you know, just strengthen our ties with our other allies. And we could all like maybe have like a G20 -1 or something where we all chat about well, how we're going to deal with the US over the next 4 years. All right, so we're going to look at a couple of Trump's... Oh, no, this one's, his attack on trans. So we've got a few things that he's done. This one was 6 days ago. This was just after my stream, actually, the other day. In another executive order signed this week, Donald Trump decided that teachers should be investigated if they use students' chosen names instead of what is listed on their birth certificates, even if parents approve of the chosen name. So we've got part of the Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling executive order includes other alarming rules for educators nationwide, such as limitations on teaching about race or gender. It states that local and state officials should investigate teachers who unlawfully facilitate the social transition of a minor student. This includes a student's chosen name and pronouns, allowing them to use the restroom they're more comfortable with, or recognising a non-binary student. My power, I've got a storm. It's actually coming in. I have a storm coming in. And my power has just fluctuated, but it looks like I'm still connected. Teachers who do so can be prosecuted under laws banning sexual exploitation of minors and practicing medicine without a license. Like, fuck, man. Practicing medicine without a license just for using a child's chosen name. God forbid, should someone named, I don't know, Albanese, what they call Albo, I don't know, Anthony, be called Tony. Like, isn't that a chosen name? Anyway, furthermore, the order calls for Department of Education, Defence, Health and Human Services and Justice to develop an ending indoctrination strategy within 90 days to find any federal funding that directly or indirectly supports or subsidises the instruction, advancement or promotion of gender ideology or discriminatory equity ideology while also promoting a patriotic education model. Oh my God. Oh my God. This reinstates Trump's 1776 commission from his first term, aimed at creating patriotic citizens ready for the workforce, not political activists. Oh my God. Wow. So, yeah, just a bunch of Hitler youth. Okay. Yes men as well, not political activists, eh? Doesn't really understand the Constitution at all, does he? According to Mother Jones, the original 1776 Commission's report on US history identifies progressivism as one of the foremost threats to American principles and derides social justice policies and as antithetical, I do know that word, to the colourblind civil rights movement. So careful, kids, no thinking or truth allowed. There was a post on YouTube from Now This Impact. It was pretty good, so that's why I included it. We've got LGBTQ material that was purged.
And as a part of President Trump's return, sweeping changes have been made to federal websites.
That includes the purge of LGBTQ plus content, and the sites, they already look different. This is what the Department of Health and Human Services website looked like last week, and that same page,
they've had to Wayback Machine it.
It looks like this is a Friday at 5 o'clock. The orders to purge these sites came down from the Oval Office. The Trump administration wiping clean content from sites under the DHHS umbrella, which includes the Centers for Disease Control and National Institutes of Health.
And we looked at this last week as well, where he changed, like he's removing funding from things that have any of the key words that they're in the list, and included obviously any LGBTQ, but any diversity, women or anything like that. Words like bias, if your paper or study contains any of that, it had to be scrubbed, and you'd also lose any funding. Here in Canada, you have premiers who pass laws stating that children claiming trans identity or asking for pronouns be used had to have their parents informed legally. Fun times. Yeah, right. So, well, yeah, okay. They're saying in this one that it's even if the parents know, like even if the parents approve, but you're saying there's sort of like more, there had been a situation where children were able to be more open at school than with their parents. I don't know, I was more open at school than with my parents, you know.
Right, the president's attacking the LGBTQ community again. This is a war he started waging when he was campaigning, and now he's making good on promises he made to his base.
Emmy Zanotti with the Equality of Michigan Action Network says LGBTQ plus folks are already reeling with other executive orders targeting their community. Now this.
They try to wordsmith, they try to delete things, they try to, erase us essentially, but you can't do that, right? Trans people and LGBTQ people have been here since the beginning of time, right? And that's just evidence.
I just saw the most amazing lightning. I hope that things are okay.
Me standing here today.
As of Friday, unrelated LGBTQ plus content was taken down too, a tool the CDC uses to measure data on sexually transmitted infections, another to study natural disaster response, and there's no more access to tracking system on health.
It's huge thunder. Yeah, ratting on the kids, even though they're scared to tell the parents. Yeah. Don't go holding a kite with metal key. I'm covered in jewelry. I love jewelry and I wear lots of jewelry. And if I go outside during a storm, I get pretty nervous. I wear lots of silver jewelry. Yeah, it's doing some really loud thunderclaps and this amazing lightning strike that just came down right in front of my window. It's all a bit questionable though.
Related behavior of high schoolers.
It's really disappointing to see. We're going to see how all of this continues to play out, and we're not going to issue any kind of knee-jerk reactions to the long-term impact until we know more.
So, Brandon, it's unclear if this is temporary or permanent. We did reach out to the CDC for comment. They did not get back with us in time for this story.
Yeah,
that is so scary for trans people. They must be so scared right now, and it's just getting worse. Just growing. Here is banned transgender. This was a day ago. Transgender women from female sport.
Really good signature. Because this is a big one, right?
Oh my God, I got to read the subtitles of these words. That's hilarious. And let's turn, maybe we can hear it.
I want to make this a really good signature. Because this is a big one, right?
Is it really? How many trans people really are there in sport? I know there's some, but I've just...
With this executive order...
Again, it's that thing where they see it everywhere. They see these dangers everywhere.
War on women's sports is over.
Okay,
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women. With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding. I'm also directing our Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, who's also she's out there with you, Greg, a fantastic job. She's unbelievable. I was watching her riding yesterday on a horse. She was as good as anybody. She's very good. To deny any and all visa applications made by men attempting to fraudulently enter the United States while identifying themselves as women athletes, try and get into the games maybe where they are unable to get into the games.
It's not even happening. That is not even happening. So they even make up dangers that just aren't even happening. so they can.
And last week, I effectively banned the chemical castration and surgical mutilation of minor children.
So, yeah, they're certainly under fire. And a touch of Australian news woven into it. We have got Peter Dutton says. So Peter Dutton is our opposition leader. So Albanese is our Prime Minister, and this is the leader of the opposition, potentially the next Prime Minister. Hopefully not. Hopefully people remember that they hated him. They've always hated him, and not to vote for the cop. An egg. He does. We call him Mr. Potato Head, but he is also drawn as an egg sometimes. His name's Peter Dutton.
Let's go live to Chloe Burris, who's in Canberra now. And Chloe, yesterday you brought us the story on Donald Trump's controversial call to ban transgender people from competing in sport. We have now heard from Peter Dutton on this issue. So what's his stance?
Well, Peter Dutton says allowing transgender athletes to compete in women's...
It's a meme in Australia, Peter Dutton says.
...games isn't in the spirit of sport. He supports the ban that President Donald Trump signed in yesterday. Under the US order, federal funding will be cut off for schools that don't comply. Peter Dutton has been taking inspiration from Donald Trump's successful campaign, but on this issue, his tone was a bit more measured, saying he doesn't want to discriminate. At the last federal election, a Liberal...
Which is a bit funny. So, like a few days ago, Michaela Cash, she's some person on his party. I forget what role she's got at this point. I don't really pay attention to them that much. And because they're alarmist and reactionary, just like Republicans. And so Michaela Cash said that Peter Dutton really likes what he sees Trump doing and that he will rule exactly the same way in Australia. And that's why I think it's important that Australian politicians, especially our Prime Minister, actually makes comment on what's going on. Here we know now we'll be voting. We're going to be voting soon in a couple of months. Now we know Peter Dutton, he supports this sort of thing. People need to know that this is who they'll be voting for because we call him Timu Trump as well. Yeah, he wants to be just like Trump.
Candidate sparked controversy with her anti-trans views and she lost convincingly. So
you're conflicted on this one because it brings a lot of negativity to women's sports and we already have enough misogynists who laugh and jeer at Olympic records and WNBA, etc. I hear you. I get where you're coming from, you know. And certainly initially when this came up, a few years ago, this sort of came up as a topic and it was something that I talked about with my kids and all. It's like, you know, and we sort of thought, you know, I can see it potentially being a problem, but there aren't really that many. And I know what you're saying. It's about the negativity, the negative spotlight that it brings to women's sport. But in all honesty, someone that's doing it to the, like, so he's like, oh, there's men coming into the country pretending to be women, like they're slapping on a dress and some lipstick and pretending to be an athlete, you know, so that they can join in women's sport. And he says the similar sort of stuff about like prisons. And it's just not happening. That to be at this level of transgender where you've got to pass a lot of sort of tests along the way before anyone's even going to let you in anyway. Anyone's even going to accept you. You're going to have to really have gone through a lot transition to even be accepted at this point, you know? And the same thing happens in jails. In other words, the only people that are going to be really going through with transgender to that level are people that are truly serious about being the sex other than what they were at birth, okay? And I think that the number is so incredibly small that they put this highlight on it so that they've got an outrage topic, so that it's a culture topic that they can talk about. And of course, everybody's like, we don't want women, like there's a reason why there's women in men's sport, and we recognise that, and that we don't want women to get infiltrated by men, by men in our sport. But it's such a low minority. And the thing is, it also then puts us in a position where we're wondering what's in someone's pants. And look what happened at that Olympics with that woman. And they were like, she was a woman. And the other day that I read something, they've changed some law in the White House or something, and if you're trans, you have to use the bathroom of your gender at birth. And there's only one trans senator or something. So that trans senator went, fine, I've got bigger battles to fight, so I'll just use the men's bathroom. And then what happened was, I don't think it was Kirsty Noem, or if it was one of or Bobbert or something, saw someone go into the women's toilet, called the security, brought security in, and they all fronted this woman in the toilet. And it turned out it was a cisgendered woman. And so you've got that thing where now, like, we're assessing everybody as to whether they're woman enough. And the problem with transgender people is so minute that it does not need to be to this level. It doesn't need this level of like debate, because it's such a minute thing that's happening. And the people that do get into the sport that are transgender, they've gone through serious transition, you know, and they are that gender. You feel like a potential trans Olympics would be the option? We already have a disabled one. Would that not solve the issue? Except that there's such a tiny amount. There's such a small amount of trans sort of sports people, and especially at the Olympic level, you know? So it's a really difficult one. And then what do you do with intersex people that are genuinely like, you know, or hermaphrodite and thing like what do you do with them? Oh, they can just sort of go in the trans Olympics. You know, like, I don't know. It's just such a small thing. You'd be lucky to have, you know, enough to do a complete swimming race, for example. Yeah, let alone a whole host of events. Yeah? That's how minute the problem really is. They've just blown it up out of proportion so that it becomes part of the culture war.
Peter Dutton isn't going too hard on this.
Young girls want to be able to compete on a fair basis, and I think that is a perfectly reasonable position to hold.
I've said I'm not going to have a running commentary on comments made by the President of the United States.
The Prime Minister there also reluctant to weigh in when asked about it. All sides of politics are being careful not to get caught up in a culture war here, knowing voters, regardless of where they sit on this issue, will be more focused on cost of living and energy when they go to the polls.
Sure, but I do think that maybe if we just disconnect from all of that, then we don't need to get involved in their culture war. We won't need their culture war, or we won't need to comment on any of their culture war, because it won't really matter to us. And we'll be able to do the right thing here in Australia. You know? It's always good to drum up anger and take parliamentary time to talk about these issues rather than fix the costly issues like healthcare or housing. Exactly. And have us fight amongst each other and have our culture war so that we're not looking at who the real problem is either. I mean, look at this. This was insane. This was crazy. Treasury Department gives Elon Musk and Doge access to the federal payment system. Like, and the thing is, because we're connected with them through Five Eyes, chances are this unelected billionaire with his own self-interest in all of these, you know, in all of this, he also has access to God knows what information they hold, like, on all of us in other countries. The
CIA is
so
now
bad.
offering buyouts to its entire
is
workforce.
nothing the right
And
level?
Elon Musk facing criticism over his government revamp efforts. ABC's Lionel Louise has the latest.
This morning, the CIA is now offering buyouts to its entire staff, the latest move in President Trump's push to downsize the government. It follows a similar offer to civilian federal workers last month. About 20,000 of those workers have now accepted the buyout ahead of tomorrow's deadline, amid reports of mass layoffs to come. ABC News has learned Elon Musk, leading the Department of Government Efficiency, has now moved beds into the executive office building next to the White House, allowing Musk and his staff to sleep there when working late. His staff reportedly includes people as young as 19 years old.
I heard like Amazon built like beds or something so their workers could work really around the clock. You're so tired of hearing about this South African Yahoo who acts like an American one week, Canadian another. It makes me want to vomit. Well, someone did an analysis and because he started going on about South Africa and how the African government are picking on the white South Africans and taking their land and stuff. And apparently it's no different. Like, they've had this land sort of, if you're not using the land or whatever, they can come and claim it and redistribute it. And there's some land redistribution happening and they don't, he doesn't like it. But Peter Thiel, who is also involved in PayPal, the creation of PayPal, and a couple of other guys, I forget their names. I've read it on my Blue Sky, but the four of them are from South Africa and they're all behind the scenes here in this thing. And so he's now pushing Trump about South Africa. Some posts have been made about that. And we've also, ever since the Nazi salute, we've certainly learnt a lot more about his history, or his Musk's family history, and why they even moved to South Africa to begin with. He makes me want to vomit too, and I just think that it is so bad that we're staying connected with him when he's shown us who he is. And we can't really do anything about the US. Obviously, Trump wants, likes him and wants to hang out with him, but other countries, we should be just going, hey, this is not on, this is, unacceptable, and just cutting ties just simply because of that man there, South Africa's a big, big issue that's very multifaceted with evils on both sides, but he needs to stick to his issues, not world ones, and he's not the king, so to speak. Exactly, and he needs to, he can't know about every country and how every country works either. And the choices of things that he chooses to take on are obviously very racially driven. Frankly, he went into that German party and was like, you shouldn't be worried about past sins and stuff, and just involving himself, isn't he, in places that he just shouldn't be. Either is he American or not? He wants access to everything that Americans have, everything. That was so frightening. And I'm not even American. It's like, I can't believe that he is allowed to do that, and there's no one can stop him.
President Trump insists they're qualified.
They're very smart people.
And he took a little team in of kids with him, bunch of teenagers. He's a closeted eugenicist with his weird obsession on natalism, which makes me chuckle because his wife was part Indigenous. Yes, he does. He has a breeding fetish, and he's also into he wants to put a chip into us all. Shit like that. He's got some weird ideas. He likes eugenics. He talks about that. He's definitely a major concern, and our government's just we don't want to give a running commentary.
Praising Musk for dismantling USAID, an agency that funds international relief efforts.
It's a disaster.
USAID staff getting this email that all direct hires will be put on administrative leave with pay, except for certain staffers serving mission-critical functions.
And this was just totally ignorant, not understanding that USAID is a soft power move. It's sure the people, a lot of the people that work there are people that are actually doing good and distributing aid, and the program does a lot of great things, but ultimately it's about asserting soft power. China goes into these areas and they assert their soft power. This is that version of that, and they don't even understand that. We were making the same mistake here in Australia during our Conservative government, where we ignored all the islands that we considered to be sort of under our wing, and we stopped providing aid. We started reducing their funding. We started reducing our involvement in them. And then China walked in and started going, hey, we'll build the school for you. We'll fund that hospital. We'll do this and that. Can you let us have a port here? And then we got scared. Oh, no, China's moving into those countries. And it's like, well, you're ignoring them, you know? Cut the US aid so that poor countries have more migration. And where do they end up? Europe, Canada, US. Very true. They end up in all the countries that we're trying to avoid them from to coming. Don't come here, but we're going to cut off all your aid so that you just have absolutely no reason to stay at all. Exactly. But, you know, it's supposed to be that soft power influence. That's what USAID is. And it's supposed to be, it's got like a bit of a CIA sort of element to it. And it's supposed to be for that. And so you don't have to go and bomb people into democracy, but rather give them aid into democracy, you know?
Democrats held a rally outside the Treasury Department to protest Musk's influence.
We have got to tell Elon Musk, nobody elected your Nobody told you can get all of our private information.
We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk. No. We pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
Musk has also faced scrutiny after getting a hold of the Treasury Department's payment system, which disperses 90% of all federal payments, including Social Security and Medicare. The Treasury Department insisting Musk's team has been granted read-only access, suggesting no changes will be made without higher authority. And back to those buyout offers made to millions of federal workers.
But those departments also responded to that saying, no, he changed certain things, and that could only be done with, like, cutting off USAID and stuff could only be done if he had more than read-only access.
Workers, 3 unions are now suing to block the offers, arguing the buyout plan amounts to a threat and represents an arbitrary offer. Lionel Moyes, ABC News, New York.
So frustrating. US Treasury agent reportedly resigned after racist posts. I think this is one of the little team that he took in, these teenagers. And this is a live thing. I don't even know why that is open on my thing. Elon Musk in the process of shutting down USAID. We're not going to watch this because that was 3 days ago and this came out. We won't watch this either because, again, so this is the Democrats just talking. And it's like, can you please come up with a plan? So they are introducing legislation. Again, they're going to go through the courts and, you know, do an impeachment and all these sort of things. But it's going to be so slow that everything's going to be sort of destroyed before then. Luckily, we do seem to have had something. Now, this came out 7 hours ago, so let's watch this. It's 40 seconds long. He's had some access blocked.
Federal judge is temporarily blocking the Department of Government Efficiency from accessing most Treasury payment records. The move comes after unions and 12 Democratic attorneys general raised concerns about exposing Americans' private financial data. For now, only 2 DOJ team members can view the records under strict read-only rules. This agreement is in place February 24th. That's when both sides will return to court to seek a long-term solution. Tonight, Elon Musk is responding to legal moves on his social media platform X. He posted a meme from the hit show The Office stating, "When you're finding fraud and somebody yells stop, that's who's doing the fraud."
Oh my God. He's doing politics with memes. Wow. Anyway, let's hope that the Democrats or somebody can come up with a plan. In the meantime, at least there's someone that stopped him partly. One of the issues that you see with the Democrats is that they keep a centrist line and they are just as bought and paid for as the Republicans. I think it's rich that a lot of them talk about cronyism and corruption when you have some doing insider trading and pushing more leftist voices out from fear of criticism. Need more status quo centrism. Exactly. They're very much the status quo. One thing, look, I'm a Bernie bro, and so I'm actually quite pissed off with the DNC ever since 2016. And, you know, they shafted Bernie in the primaries, and that was revealed by WikiLeaks, what they had done. And then, so they ran Hillary, right? What I don't like about here with the Democrats is they run Hillary, who really wasn't that popular, but, you know, she did win the popular vote, but whatever, she lost. She lost the election. When she lost that election, they just went, we're not going to do anything. It'll be all right. Or so I don't know what they were thinking, but they should have been platforming, you know, important voices within the Democrat Party. They should have been, you know, putting people up there, pushing policies, coming up with a plan in 2016. But they did nothing to me. To me, they seemingly just, I don't know, stopped working, because then when it came around, when 2020 came around, and they just went, okay, we're going to run Biden. And it's like, Biden was in 2020. And so it was like, by running him, he was already really old, to me, was like, we're just going to stick with the status quo. They didn't try to elevate anybody new. And it was inevitable that Biden was going to get too old. It was inevitable he would need to be replaced. So why did they even run him in the first place? They should have been actioning back in 2016 when Hillary lost, trying to find somebody that they could put up. You know, somebody that, because running Biden was just an old man that was, you know, could have potentially died or anything. If they wanted Kamala, they could have run Kamala, you know, platformed her earlier, get her public profile up, or Gavin Newsom or whoever. I don't know. I don't know all the players, but they do. And they should have got one of those players or some of them and platformed them and showed them and got their public face up in front of the people, so that when 2020 rolled around, they could have campaigned with a new face, not the status quo, because people are sick of the status quo. And to me, sometimes, some people, that's why they support Trump, because he is chaos. He is someone that's not the status quo, you know? And so he represents that kind of real shake-up that needs to happen, that people want to see. And the Democrats aren't recognising that. And they keep trying to, like you say, they're keeping a centrist line, and then they blame people for not voting for them. That are like, but you don't really represent me, so why should I vote for you? Rather than recognising that trying to drift further and further right isn't offering people an alternative. Yeah? That doesn't offer anyone an alternative, and people want an alternative to the status quo. It's because people like Bernie, AOC and other leftist voices threaten to break the corporatist monopoly on healthcare, slow down the military-industrial complex, and now we're seeing the true geriatrics like Hillary be pushed forward, who are so out of touch, be made the leaders on tap. Even Kamala is so painfully stale. It was no shock they lost. Yes, it was no shock. And that's right. And that's the thing. They're offering no real alternative to this chaos here. This guy's at least chaos for people. He's not the status quo. He is a symbol of not the status quo. And Dems are just constantly like, no, we need to do this with diplomacy and, you know, decorum and the status quo. And just remaining totally out of touch. And you're right, it is because of lobbyists, the corporates and all of that's involved in them, and the money that they get. Someone pointed out to me the other day, they earned more money than any anyone earned, campaigning, and they lost. So it was very profitable to lose for them, they're not offering anything that's going to be, they're not offering a plan to save us from this. And no one wants the status quo, because that's no good either. The status quo is just more wars and spreading democracy with bombs, Okay, here's a crazy one that he did. Oh, even in Canada, you have the issue where there's centre-left, centre-right, and a left party, and the two centrists are so bland and similar, you'd think the left-wing party would be an option, but their candidate is so status quo and focuses on drivel that nobody takes them seriously. Yeah, it's interesting. Do you have preferential voting in Canada, or is it sort of like America? It can't be like American. You're a Commonwealth country like us. So do you have like a Westminster system? We have a preferential system. So provincially, otherwise it's Westminster style. So what we have is like we have a what is supposed to be a centre-left party and then a centre-right party. Well, the centre-right party went very right. So they're far right, and that's Peter Dutton's group. And they're actually a coalition of two parties, but essentially that party is quite right-wing. There are some that are even more extreme than them, but they all sort of follow each other. And then we have our centre-left party, which are not centre-left at all. They're probably moderate right-wing, and that's Anthony Albanese, and that's who's in power now. And they're technically the left-wing party. And then we have the Greens, who are our left wing. But we have a preferential voting system which allows us to, like, as a voter myself, I can write in exactly the order of person that I would like to see in power. And if the first one that I choose, and it's not the head of the country, it's just your area. So in my particular area in Victoria, and the state itself is broken up into all different little areas. And so I would vote for the person that I want to see in my area to represent my area, and then I would put the next one in. And if that person that I want, my number one, doesn't get enough votes, all of the votes that I gave, like say that person doesn't get enough votes, all of their votes will be distributed to whoever vote the next person on the list is. So in my case, on my vote, it would go to the next person's vote, and then they'd pick up the next person's vote and they'd go, okay, and they'd redistribute that out. So it gets redistributed out until they come up with basically two contenders, and then those two are the ones that sort of battle it out. So everyone's votes get placed out preferentially into that. And we ended up with 21 in Australia. We ended up nationally 21 independents, 11 Greens, and a smattering of other small parties. And as a result, there was a large, what we call crossbench, and we have the Labor Party did manage to get a majority, but they can rule in minority, which is where they need to have, basically they need to convince the Greens and the independents and those smattering of small parties to follow them and to give confidence in their government so that they can stay in power. And so with that, we've ended... What we call now, we used to call them shit and shit light, which was the Liberal Party, Liberal National Party, and the Labor Party. And we now call them the Uni Party because there's not much. You're not really voting for much difference between the two. It's exactly like Democrats and Republicans in that regard. But we have these minor parties and independents, basically, these 21 independents, 11 Greens, and they can hold the two majors to account, so they can force them to make changes to a bill or whatever in order to get their vote. And it is pretty good. It is a good way. And at the moment, what's happening is because people. It's kind of like quite refreshing. I'm hoping, I've got my fingers crossed. Last election was a huge sort of wake-up call for the Labor Party, the centre-left party, and they didn't take the wake-up. They didn't listen to the wake-up call with all these independents, so potentially they may end up losing even more seats this time. We're hoping it won't be that they lose to the Liberal National, and we're hoping that more independents will get in. Because that grip that the duopoly have, or the uni party in our case have, it will fall apart because of the way our system works. So it is a lot more fair, I do think, and it's something that I wouldn't give up. Preferential voting is absolutely something that I push for, and I often sort of tell friends from America and stuff, you know, sort of lecture them about our preferential voting system and how it's good. So you emulate the British system almost one-to-one. Instead of Labor, you have the Liberals, Tories, you have Conservative and a third party. Well, we have Labor, which is I don't know in the UK what that is. The Liberals, our Liberal Party are Republicans. That's their thing, yeah? They're Tories. And our Labor Party are the left wing, or the Democrats, yeah? And our third party is probably the Greens, but like I say, we got 11 Greens and 21 independents in this time, last election. So we're hoping to do better again this election. I guess would be the NDP, which are traditionally socialist light, but now are akin to the Liberals. We have a majority system where 30% of the seats can be a majority government, and you vote for one candidate. Oh my. Only place with preferential is Ontario for inter-party voting. Right. Your system sounds a lot more fair and democratic, but we will never have that style of voting because it breaks the duopoly grip and the two parties. Well, that's... Our two parties do work together to try and sabotage the electoral system, and they've just had some stuff go down over electoral donations and stuff like that. They're trying to reduce what an individual is allowed, but a party can earn sort of unlimited amounts, but an individual's not allowed. So if you're a member of a party as an individual, you can only earn a certain amount of money, but that means you also have access to party funds, whereas an independent is an individual who doesn't have a party behind them. So our current government is trying to change, or the uni party are trying to change it so that the individuals aren't allowed to. And we want caps. We want caps on donations and stuff, but we don't want it to be something that we want caps on like lobbying donations and things like that for the big two parties, yeah? Not for smaller independents that are holding the two parties to account, you know? And the other thing that they're trying to do, the uni party are trying to create take transparency out of donations. And so if you make a donation, that it won't be revealed who's donating, which is just, I don't even know how they plan to get that one through. Yeah. So anyway, what have we got here? This one only came out 15 hours ago. I'm interested to find out what it's actually about, that he's announced a new religious office. I read that it has reduced. Did I post it? I think I posted it on my Blue Sky. Let's see. Because I've known America for a long time to have had 80%. Yep, 80%. In some English-speaking countries, people value religion less than they did before. So, yeah, when I was young, in the 90s, 80% of the US were religious. It has dropped to 61%. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of them. But someone pointed out it is wild. I think one of these people pointed out it's wild that even today they have still got more religious people in their population than we had 20 years ago. So I think that's quite extraordinary. But it's interesting to see that it is dropping. But it's still religious enough to have a religious
To
office.
confront such weaponization and religious persecution, today I'm signing an executive order to make our Attorney General, who's a great person, she's going to be a great Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias. About time, right? Anti-Christian bias.
Wait, it's not religious freedom in the American Constitution? Is that not a thing? Is not separation of church and state something that matters there? You think parties should get funding according to seats, and that's it, period. No donations, no $10,000 dinner plate fundraisers, no lobbying. You get a set amount for adverts, signage, etc. That'd be great, wouldn't it? We want that. See, when we fight for stuff in Australia and we go, this is what we want electoral reform, and we want, money out of campaigning. We want it, and they change it in a way that is not the way that we want. US has a history of religiosity. You use big words for me. No, not really. I just haven't read for a long time, especially due to pilgrim origins. Yes. I watched a Western the other day, which had the Mormons. It was one of their wars. I didn't even realize that about their war. It was like it had Mormons fighting and stuff. They've got very religious origins. Whereas in Canada or Aussie land, you don't think either of us have got a history of dispelled religious extremists. So it's so it took around there. Yeah, well, I don't know about Canada. I don't really know much of your history, I must admit. I don't know any Canadian history. But we obviously had a bunch of convicts brought here, and then a bunch of bureaucrats to look after the convicts. So there wasn't a very religious undertone, I guess, to our, to the colonisation of Australia. And so whereas the US was kind of freely settled, I guess, and bunch of the Mormons. What was the movie I watched? It was called American Pilgrim. I think. TV. I think that's what it's called. No. It's on the Netflix. American's Netflix. It was must have been set in the 1800s because it was in the Wild West. And it was pretty good. American Primeval. Yeah. Yeah, this was it. Why is it not loading? What's wrong with my internet? Set in 1857 during the Utah War, the series examines the fight to gain control over the American West and the violent clash between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and cultures in Utah, centering on the events surrounding Mountain Meadows Massacre. So there's all these churches that settled and came in to sort of, I guess, to try and bring Christianity to the Indians or something, in their mind. Something like that. Yours is mostly rich English, Scottish settlers, yoked French. Oh, yeah, there's the French who were treated like dirt, but the Brits let the French keep their religion. There wasn't really this fervour or stringent belief system like with Protestants in the US. Basically treated the Indigenous like dirt and forced conversions. Yeah, that's it. The church has a vile history and is powerful. Yes. And they let their churches have so much power. This is crazy. This is just not separation of church and state at all.
Yeah, you never heard of that one before, right? But there's.
Oh, I don't know what was.
It's about time, isn't it? Though, really. So many times you hear, but you don't hear the anti-Christian bias. The mission of this task force will be to immediately halt all forms of anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the federal government, including at the DOJ, which was absolutely terrible, the IRS, the FBI, terrible, and other agencies.
I don't know how he can figure in his head that cops and cop-like jobs, that left-wing woke people are in those jobs.
In addition, the task force will work to fully prosecute anti-Christian violence and vandalism in our society.
This could be bad. This could result in all sorts of things being, like, what are we doing? Another, like, Inquisition?
To move heaven and earth to defend the rights of Christians and religious believers nationwide. You've never had that before, but this is a very powerful document I'm signing. You got it?
No, you've had it before. It was the Inquisition, and you killed a lot of witches in Salem.
Now, first time you've had it. If we don't have religious liberty, then we don't have a free country. We probably don't even have a country. I will always protect religious liberty.
Oh my gosh.
And that is why today I'm on and really honoring a lot of people, but I'm announcing that I will be creating a brand new presidential commission on religious liberty. It's going to be a very big deal, which will work tirelessly to uphold this most fundamental right. This week, I'm also creating the White House Faith Office, led by Pastor Paula White, who is so amazing.
That is wild. That is pretty wild. That could get really bad. Religious freedom equals Christian supremacy in his eyes. Some of the most unchristian Christians are the most vocal. You're so right. You're so right. Oh my gosh. We are just still going. He has done so much and it's so worrying. Look at this one. Bans observances for Black History Month and other special observances. And that's why we haven't seen anything. I don't even know how he can... Okay, so apparently the way he's like pushing all these executive orders is he's using an emergency clause in the law, because you can only push some of these things if you have emergency powers. And so he's like making everything into an emergency so that he can basically push these orders. But this is crazy. So what, if any company celebrates it, what happened to like capitalism?
We're following breaking news from Washington, where as part of President Trump's pushback on diversity and inclusion initiatives, NBC News has learned that the Defense Intelligence Agency has ordered a pause on all events
laws in Weimar, Germany
related to MLK Day or Black History Month, which we should note begins tomorrow. Joining us now with more, NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, Atlantic staff writer Ashley Parker, and Aaron Haynes, editor-in-chief at the 19th. So, Kelly, this follows a string of anti-DEI initiatives and messaging from the White House. What's this one about?
Well, certainly what we're seeing is that in this particular agency, the Defense Intelligence...
It's trying to overwhelm us with so much shit so we can't fight.
Agency, there is a memo that has been distributed to staff members making clear that the agency will not support any celebration, commemoration, events associated with Black History Month, Martin Luther King Day, and so forth. Now, Martin Luther King Day is enshrined in federal law as a federal holiday, so it's unclear what that means in terms of how that would be observed. Federal workers do not have to come to work on a federal holiday, to state the obvious. So one of the questions we hope to...
Obviously, they're going to have to go to work. Wow. How? Because their judicial system's so slow.
Learn more about is how widespread is this approach. President Trump has been very clear in his public statements and in his use of various instruments with a pen, meaning a memo or an executive order or the various things that we've been seeing him sign since he came into office, very clearly saying that he wants to root out DEI programming and hiring related practices and so forth. And as he has described it, he wants the best people regardless of what they look like or how they speak or how they live. And so is this a broad policy that will affect all parts of the federal government, or was this the interpretation of a given agency to be in alignment with the White House? Part of what this new Trump administration has been trying to do is to get the federal workforce to be in step with President Trump's priorities and his view of how the federal government should operate in a broad array of areas, and included.
But it's not Project 2025, all right?
And that is handling matters that deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion programming. And they have rooted out those programs for funding to say those will no longer be funded. But things like Black History Month, which are celebrated in many different contexts, in workplaces, in communities, and so forth. So we have more questions here about what does this mean and how will the federal workforce note what have been longstanding practices in American culture to honor Black History Month and other kinds of initiatives that lift up parts of our large community, whether it's persons with disabilities, whether it's women's issues, the whole array of things. But at the moment, because as you point out, February 1st begins Black History Month, how will it play out on the federal level? That's part of what we're trying to pursue. We have evidence now of an agency saying no activities, and we want to find out how broad it is.
It's just wild. I just think it's just, he's just trying to spread us so thin, like overwhelm us with so much shit. I reckon this is an attack. This one here is an attack on California. And I just wish California would secede or join Canada. I believe there's a name for it. For like Canada and Cali joining, I believe there is some name. You don't want them, but they have so much money. The 5th largest GDP in the world, Cali has. So effectively they could secede and be their own country because they certainly earn enough money. You know? Their leftism's still further right of you. What, in Cali? In Cali, really? Really? I mean, yeah, America's... I'm just trying to encourage the smart left-wing people to leave, like, America, like come to Australia or whatever, like and we'll use their, you know, and then become citizens of Australia so that you have to vote, and then we'll be assured of always having more left than right. It's still pretty questionable here in Australia, I got to say. As you go more rural and sort of certain states in Australia, it can be quite conservative, and they'll vote against their best interest all day, every day. This is crazy. This here is insane, yet this is the one I want.
President Trump has released water from 2 dams in the Central Valley, just as promised.
The president says over the first 3 days, 5 billion gallons of water will be released. John Ramos spoke with an expert who says the move actually doesn't help anyone.
It's times like this, when winter storms are causing the rivers that feed into the California Delta to run high, that water managers hope we can capture and store as much water as possible for the dry summer months. And that's why so many people are scratching their heads over what President Trump just did.
I feel like Callie could still be convinced like that socialism and stuff's pretty good if you're like, if they had free healthcare, if they had more freedom to be, you know, have free healthcare and things like that and spend their money on good things, I feel like they could be converted.
On Friday, President Trump posted an announcement showing a photo of the, quote, beautiful water flow that I just opened in California, end quote. By executive order, he directed the Army Corps of Engineers to open the floodgates at 2 dams in reservoirs in Tulare County. In a statement from...
Such a projectionist. This is what he... See, they always are telling us what they would do. So when he was saying, oh, California just wasted all this water and then let it flow out to sea to save some little fish or whatever, he was just telling us what he would do in that situation.
Washington, D.C., the Corps said, quote, consistent with the executive order, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is releasing water from Terminus Dam at Lake Cahuilla and Schaefer Dam at Lake Success to ensure California has water available to respond to the wildfires, end quote. But there are a few problems with that.
And apparently, Mr. Trump felt that that was going to help Southern California. Well, number one, those rivers aren't connected to Southern California. That water will not get to Southern California. And number two, that's water that the Corps was holding for farmers to irrigate with next summer. Releasing it now when it's raining doesn't do anybody good, except it creates the very real risk of potential flooding.
See, and that's an attack. That's an attack on California, an attack on the farmers. And someone mentioned, I don't know where I read it, someone mentioned that the small farmers are going to suffer really poorly, like from this, really badly, and be the people with the water rights and everything, the large farms with water rights that are going to do very well with this. So I think that it's an attack from their own president. Yeah, they have a fairly large social benefit system and they're fairly progressive. But once again, their progressivism is still baked with that corruption of the Democrats that's very tempered in my view. But the Democrats could just like go away to America and go continue fighting over in America while Callie is taken under your wing. You need to save them. Sorry. I feel like they're under attack. I do. Please, no mercy. I do feel like they could defend themselves if they were to somehow stop the federal government from taking their taxes, but I don't know how they would do that because apparently that gets like taken from automatically anyway, so there's no real way to sort of hold the taxes that they would normally give to the federal government as part of their own threat. To like, because he's just going to keep attacking them, I feel.
Barry Nelson has his own reasons for being angry about this. He is policy representative for the Golden State Salmon Association, which for the last 2 years has not been able to fish because of the shockingly low numbers of Chinook salmon still remaining in the wild.
California salmon are right now at one of the most disastrous points they've been at certainly in human history. We've now gone to a point where many of our most important salmon runs are on the brink of extinction.
The fishermen say the salmon need larger flows in rivers during dry months to survive, and though they're frequently competing with Central Valley agriculture for water, this time even the farmers aren't happy.
The agricultural community looks at this and says, what is going on here? That is water that was being held in storage for farmers to grow stuff next summer.
Well, I just hope some of them were Trump voters.
Releasing water now only does one thing.
To say,
it puts people at risk from flooding.
President Trump understood that when he had those dams open?
No.
Nelson is concerned that this waste of billions of gallons of water will be an indication of the kind of resource management they can expect for the next 4 years.
California has the most complex plumbing system on the planet. It's not a simple thing to operate, and if you think it's simple and order people to make what look like simple decisions to you, you wind up making really dumb decisions.
Northern Cali is Republican, states not uniformly Dem. Yeah, I heard that recently, but rural areas especially, yeah. Same here. That's weird, eh? That's funny. They get duped by the very people that are like scamming them. They get scammed. And they fall for it. And it's like, so we have a similar thing, and the farmers kind of attack the hippies and the greens and things like that. And it's like, these are the very people that are fighting for the climate that you need for your farm to produce, to produce your livelihood. You hear what Californian Republicans say, they're night and day versus the mainstream too. Yeah. I mean, but they're very few. But at the same time, those seats, I believe, were needed for Trump to win still. So he could still lose favor with people if he's just going to try and attack the whole state. Because it's like Trump doesn't even recognize that there are Republican voters in Cali, right? There were Republican voters there where the fires came through in Southern Cali. So for him, there's a lot of rich people, I'm sure, that are Republican in California, and he just doesn't care. He doesn't care. He just sees the state as blue, and that's it, and he's just going to attack it. And so maybe, that might wake some people up. I haven't seen it ever wake people up here, like with our farmers or our rural communities and stuff. The way people vote against their own best interests is so frustrating. It's so frustrating.
What's interesting here is that this experience with this just dumb release of water that didn't benefit anybody and threatened public safety shows that
apparently it flooded some areas.
Actually matters when you're running big, complicated systems.
Experts
we'll see
matter.
If
anyone in Washington, D.C. is listening to that lesson.
Nelson says he believes that people within the Army Corps of Engineers must know that releasing water now is pointless. But he thinks as a branch of the U.S. military, they were simply following orders from their commander-in-chief.
And we all know what that means, just following orders thing. All right, we're almost at the end of the American stuff. Here in Canada, rural folk love the Conservatives here, and the federal head, Pierre Poilievre, is such a vile creature. He shovels the bullshit so well that they believe a tax cut means all taxes. Yeah, I know. They do the same here. It's so frustrating. And they listen to Mr. Potato Head and they go, I think he's a good economic manager. And they do so much corruption and they get us in so much debt. And then the Labor Party get in and they fix it all. They fix all the budget and they get us into surplus. And then the Liberals come in and they spend it all again and they just do this stupid thing. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. All right, we're going to do a couple of public health announcements for America since their health system, the CDC, the literal people that deal with diseases, has effectively been shut down because it's not allowed to communicate with the country. There's been this sort of spike of problems. So I don't know that we're going to watch them. It's more just be aware there is flu cases spiking across the country. And this could very well affect, what health system? But it's more the alerts. They're not allowed to even give notifications anymore. So there's a couple of things. There's a tuberculosis outbreak in Kansas. Right? And again, the CDC is not allowed to communicate with the public, and apparently it's the largest outbreak that has ever occurred of TB. Largest documented TB outbreak in the record of the United States, and the CDC's not allowed to put out any warnings or anything. So they've got 79 active cases, 213 latent TB cases, and then adding that those cases are still provisional and are being reviewed for confirmation. 2 TB deaths were associated with the outbreak. So there's the TB, there's flu. I did also hear about another one, but I couldn't. This one here, the Camp Hill virus. But this one is not in humans yet. The risk is likely low, but this one's incredibly dangerous as well. And not only have we got this issue, but we have the issue with the eggs and people drinking the raw milk and things like that. And you've got bird flu. And so there's bird flu in the eggs, not all the eggs, but, you know, it's around. And then it's in the raw milk, and the CDC's not allowed to communicate. The very poor health system that they have in the first place is not allowed to basically communicate or do anything about any of this. And ultimately, then that means they become a danger to the rest of us. That's how I see it. And that's, you know, obviously how more sane people would see it in America too. They go and they get their shots and stuff, but there's only that you can't get shots against like bird flu and stuff. You can't get vaxxed against bird flu, but you don't go and drink the raw milk and stuff when there's bird flu in the raw milk. Anti-vax, yeah, exactly. They are anti-vax loons. This is going to get worse with the Kennedy fellow. He believes all inoculations are poison, so you'll see more TB, polio. Hopefully not. I mean, they seem to be pressuring him, and he goes, I'm not anti-vax. I just don't like the COVID vax and the measles vax and this. There's a lot of vaxes he doesn't like, but he reckons he's not anti-vax. So he just wants to look at the system. But yeah, I mean, if he was in charge of the health system or whatever, then shouldn't he be letting the CDC do their job? You know, this is so crazy. He is... The coked up geezer seems like he would turn his hands up at the hand soap. That's funny. Indeed. Like the guy, what's some of the stories? I was just running down some of the stories to one of my kids, just sort of going, okay, this is what this guy is. He's had brain worms, which he might have got from a bear that he killed with a bike. That's right. And then he left it in Central Park as a troll joke, which probably gave him the brain worms. And that he also, did he carry the bear on the roof of his car? I think he carried a whale on the roof. No, the whale, I don't know, but he did something with a whale. He ate a dog, or maybe it was a goat, I don't know, but he barbecued something full animal on the barbecue. Like, he just lists some of the very, very, like, extreme things about this guy to just someone, and they're just like, are you kidding? Yeah, I think it was the bear on the car. But there was a whale too. I remember a story with a whale more recently. I just don't know how somebody who has had an obvious health issue could have so much doubt in the health system. Like, I've been in a position where I needed the hospital to save my life, and those people are heroes. And I don't know how you could come out the other side thinking anything but, you know, about nurses and doctors who are working under a system that is, you know, what it is, but what the job that they do and the saving lives is just... You know, that should be what solidifies for you as a person that that medicine works, you know. Science and science in medicine works. You like what he says about preservatives, dyes, sugars and fats, but beyond that he preaches pure conspiracy. And does he really like mean it though, you know? Like, I agree with you. And of course, I mean, that's the thing. There's always in these people, in these conservative scammer types, and I don't know that he's a scammer. I think he truly believes all this stuff. He's one of the genuine ones, yeah? But there's always that element of truth that they can use to as the hook to bring you into their story, you know, to bring you into their stuff and then show you more and more. And then, you know, I mean, I've been down this rabbit hole, like, especially it was back when WikiLeaks put out all the US cables in 2010. And I'd already been visiting sort of conspiracy sites and stuff because they're fun and, you know, sometimes there's good theories. I'd got into like John Titor, who's a time traveler and things like that. And so I was kind of like, you know, playing with that sort of stuff. But more, you know, and into the news aspect and things like that. And then George Nori, who's that? What's that? Is that to do with Tidor? No, or is it something else? Might know this one. Why have I got no light? The blackouts. Radio conspiracy guy. Right, there's one, Art Bell and things like that. So I was going to like Above Top Secret and Godlight Productions and things like that. And so... but then something happened and it just kind of all went really crazy. Like, so when sort of WikiLeaks came out, I sort of dived into that and politics and found all this sort of thing out. And the conspiracies there, and there's a lot of truth in the conspiracies that they look at. Like, you can get true conspiracies, absolutely, but they take them and then take it to the next level, you know? And it's kind of worried me how many people sort of went down the rabbit hole. And I've got no problem with people going down the rabbit hole because the government does some pretty shonky stuff. And conspiracies do exist. But what concerns me is people that go down that rabbit hole and get lost down there. They don't manage to pull themselves back and then look at everything from a wider perspective and a more rational, you know, put it in a rational lens, you know. So they go down the Illuminati rabbit hole, for example, and they get just totally lost in that, especially if they're religious, you know, and rather than pulling back and going, okay, maybe it's a thing, but it's not helpful. What's helpful is naming people that do corruption and crime and conspiracy, you know. That's what we need to do. And whereas if we give it something like Illuminati, then people sort of get distracted by that and it gets protected behind this kind of, you know, shop front. So George Nuri went from aliens and fun stuff governments to weight loss pills and Republican quacks, sadly. Yeah, right. It sort of became an Alex Jones. And see, even Alex Jones, they used to go on about like FEMA camps and stuff. Like, and you look at it and you go, oh, it is a bit dodgy, isn't it? Oh, that is creepy. All the orders of like plastic bags to put dead humans in. But if you put it in a practical sense, you go, okay, but what if there's a massive pandemic or a huge natural disaster and thousands of people die and the government needs these resources, or they need like, you know, a place for people to stay when they're in a a natural disaster of some description, like a huge natural disaster, like the San Andreas fault or something going off, you know? And these people get lost in the like whole FEMA camp thing. If you watch some of Alex Jones's old FEMA camp stuff, he'd go right into that and the barbed wire all points inways so that it proves it's a prison and all this nefarious stuff. And there's if it was air conditioning, it'd be pointing this way, but it's not. So it must be a gas chamber and all. You know, they go right deep and be like, no, you need to pull back and see that these things have a purpose for existing, you know. But they use those elements of truth, those things that do exist and that are true, to capture people and use that as the evidence that what they're saying is real, you know, and true. And then people just get lost in it. And it's really surprised me how many people I used to listen to, influencers and politicians or whatever, or news readers that I used to listen to that used to be quite aware, but have gone down the rabbit hole and got lost completely, you know, and haven't been able to take that step back. With a lot of the pundits and conspiracy folk, you think that they have all realised the pockets are a lot deeper when they get political and they abandon the good fight. Exactly. They turn into these grifters. They turn into grifters, you know. Okay, so I wasn't planning to actually read these or play the videos. It was more a health alert, a health awareness alert for Americans, as your CDC is broken currently. Okay. Now, there is still a little more news. It's taking a while. We got all the way through the US news and we looked at that one. Okay, there was 10 killed in Sweden. I did not get time to look at this week, this incident. So we're going to have a little play of this.
Right now, we're following developments in Sweden, where officials are trying to establish a motive in what the country's prime minister calls the worst mass shooting in that country's history. At least 10 people were killed in yesterday's attack at an adult education center. This is more than 100 miles west of Stockholm. Police say the gunman was also killed. For more on this, I'm joined by CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams in our London bureau. Holly, this is extremely rare for Sweden. What more do we know about what happened?
Good morning, Errol. Well, the attack occurred in the middle of the day, around 12:30, as you said, at an adult education centre in the town of Örebro, which is a small place. It only has a population of around 100,000 people. That centre helps adults study for high school diplomas, learn vocational skills and learn the Swedish language. And many of the students there were immigrants. The police say that along with those killed, 6 people were injured, including 5 who had surgery for gunshot wounds. Yesterday, they said that 2 of them were being treated in intensive care. And the police also say that there is evidence to suggest that the attacker shot himself. Now, the police say they have no evidence at this point of any ideological motive. They do say that the man appears to have acted alone. He had never been convicted of a crime, and he was not known to the police until this incident. They say they are still trying to figure out why he did this. In fact, a day after the attack, we really know remarkably little about the attacker and what his motives were. According to Swedish media reports, which we can't independently confirm at this point, the attacker was aged around 35. He was unemployed. He was a recluse with little contact with his family, and he did have a hunting license to own and use a gun.
And Holly, it's just extremely, as unusual as it would be anywhere, extremely unusual in Sweden. How uncommon is this?
Well, look, you know, Europe has much lower rates of gun crime than the US and much lower rates of gun ownership. To give you some context on that, in a 2019 US study found that the firearm homicide rate in the US was 22 times higher than Europe as a whole. And when it comes to gun ownership, the US has about 120 guns owned per 100 people, whereas in Sweden they have only about 23 guns owned per 100 people. people. That is quite high, though, by European standards, and you must have a weapon license to own a gun. However, Sweden, which has a population of around 10 million people, has had the highest per capita gun violence in the European Union in recent years. A lot of those incidents have been attributed to gang violence, and shootings like this in schools remain extremely rare.
Just a horrific tragedy. I know you'll continue to gather details. Holly, thank you.
That is like just out of the blue. I wonder what it was. All right, and our only Aussie news this week, really, well, amongst what's been sort of tied in with it. Yeah, I hadn't really read much on it either. Sweden's like Germany, and it's had serious issues with integration. The shooter probably went too deep down the rabbit hole. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, or mental health, perhaps. Like, it just seems so, if they're struggling to find an ideology, it just seems so sort of, yeah, no motivation, doesn't it? So that then just takes me to like a some sort of mental illness. Okay, so I don't know if I want to read all of this. How long is it? This is the only Australian news that's of any real, like, has any real story to it. Considering everything else has been mostly US news, and we aren't even getting any reactions from our government to what's happening in the US. So, and there's not much happening here at the moment. So, but this lady, Antoinette Lattouf, was fired from the ABC, which is our national broadcaster. Well, she was on like a short contract, I believe, but like she was relieved off air as soon as they started investigating her. And she wrote, basically she posted a tweet, I guess, from human rights. From some human rights organisation. It's probably in here if I bothered reading it. It's just that I'm not really interested in this guy. This case has been going on for a few days now, this week. So she's taken the ABC to court over her being kicked off air due to the post that she made. Human Rights Watch, that's right. So she shared a Human Rights Watch post on her personal Instagram which said starvation was being used as a tool of war in Gaza. That's all she did. So she shared one of their posts, right? And they fired her. Now, there's some really juicy stuff that's been coming out about the people that are running our public broadcasters. So this is like the Canadian broadcaster, whatever their public broadcaster. I know you've got one. It's probably even called CBS or CBC, yeah. Well, that's the equivalent, right? And the BBC in the UK and PBS in the US. And they've gone and done this. What happened was during the Conservative government, the LNP government that we had last, they removed a lot of funding from the ABC. They don't like the ABC. It's too woke. And they fired the head of the ABC and replaced it with someone that was sympathetic to the LNP. No surprise, right? And they still complain that the ABC is too woke. And so there has been a lot of pressure from external forces, a lot of complaints that have been coming into our national broadcaster, trying to force a certain narrative. And a whole heap of complaints came in from that certain group who were kind of almost lobbying the ABC. Yeah, and they kicked her out of the team, and so she's firing. She's firing up in court. She's suing in court, or she's taken them on in court about this. And there's certainly been some interesting stuff that have come down. ABC executive says he felt pressure from above, and this is some of the interesting stuff was this Ida Buttrose was who they put in charge of the ABC, and she said that she didn't care, that she wanted her gone. They tried to make this lady prove her race on, I think it was on Tuesday, because she said that they've kicked her out because of her race and she's Lebanese, and they basically said that it didn't exist. At least that's the memes and headlines that were going around, were that the ABC says the Lebanese race doesn't exist. But that's not quite what they were saying, but it was kind of, she had to prove her race existed. Which is just crazy. So, everyone's pretty pissed off with the ABC at the moment. Your CBC is very good for news, podcast, radio, and is indispensable in my view, but their creative end is purely drivel, that is very political and just low quality. Our ABC used to be awesome, and every Australian has watched Play School and Bananas in Pyjamas and all those shows, and we have all been educated by the ABC, every single Australian that grew up here. And it was also very good for news. It's in recent years become, it's still good for news. It's still one of the better sources in Australia. Our commercial news is just useless. The commercial news platforms are just absolutely useless. They are bought and sold by the LNP and, billionaires, or they're owned by Murdoch, it's just, and they have advertising interests. The ABC and SBS, which is our other it's kind of a combo commercial public broadcaster. It's the national language broadcaster. And they can be very good as well with their news. But the ABC News, like I said, was attacked by the Conservative government, and different people were put in charge. This Ida Buttrose was put in charge. She's very right wing. And then we literally had a News Corp guy, a Murdoch, an old editor of a News Corp newspaper, I believe it was, who was put in charge of the ABC during the LNP government 4 years ago, and it has just got worse. And I was already sort of going, why do they keep doing all these? Why is our ABC doing biased reporting, and there's still some journalists there that are good, and they've managed to retain those good journalists, but so many have dropped off. And the other thing that we have zero of in Australia anymore is sarcasm, like satirical news programs. Actually, we have one, I guess. We do have one, but he's not on very often. And it's called The Weekly, but otherwise we used to have them all the time. And I think that satirical news programs are very good for a population to understand what's happening in entertaining things. So people spend all day at work. They don't want to come home and then listen to depressing news. They want to sit down and watch a movie, or they want to play games or do something like that that's entertaining, because they've just spent all day at work and they don't have time to be, diving into news. But if you have an entertaining news program, people will watch that, like the UK have I Got News for You? And there was, they used to have Mock the Week. See, that's dropped off. They've got The Last Leg. They've got a few shows, and we don't have really that anymore. We have one that tries to be that on commercial TV, but it's got really, really bad, and it's called The Project, and it's just it's not funny anymore. It's not funny and it's not clever, and it's just got quite bland. And there's a lot of lies and propaganda in the 3 commercial channels. And now the ABC is starting to falter to sort of right-wing propaganda and starting to elevate the right wing rather than just telling us what's happening and being, and that satirical news content is not there anymore. And that, I think that's a really concerning thing. And a lot of our satire news used to start right here on ABC, and it's practically gone. And I think that's really sad. And yeah, and so our ABC has been, we called it Auntie, has been under attack for quite a few years now, and is suffering. And this is kind of the result of it. And I don't know. I hope it can be repaired, but the Labor government didn't do what we sort of gave them a mandate to take on media conglomerates and stuff like that in the last election, and they did nothing. All they did was keep pandering more and more to Murdoch and more to big media and taking more from the ABC. They were the ones, I believe, that appointed the News Corp guy, maybe. It might have been them, and I was so livid too. Yeah, so so on the CBC, oh yeah, you've heard horror stories about Murdoch in Aussie. But the thing is, Murdoch owns Fox News, right? Murdoch's incredibly responsible for what's happened in America. All right. And Murdoch was sitting in the room the other day while Trump was signing executive orders. So he's just dreadful. He's had such an impact on the whole world. And that's why I'm very worried about here in Australia, because we do have a large population that have only got access now these days to Murdoch News. And that's really worrying. So the CBC has some vitally good people like Andrew Chang or Ian Hamnersing, but they also have people like Rosemary Barton who wear their politics on their sleeve, and it's gross when they're news, not opinion, when it's headlines. Yes, we've got a similar thing. There's a lady, I don't know if I know her name. I think one of them left. And I was she left, and she was very LNP, so she was very conservative, and I didn't like the way that she asked questions, because she didn't follow up questions with Scott Morrison, our previous Prime Minister, but she wouldn't pursue a line of questioning on them. But then when it came to Labor, she'd bite really hard, and it was just like was quite destructive. We have another lady that's awesome, and there's not many of them left at the ABC, Laura Tingle, and she's great. She's fantastic. But there's a lady that does some interviews at the moment, and she gives me the same feel that this woman gave me. So I'm this is pretty much the only lady that's left there with any substance. And then we have a show called Planet America that is brilliant, run by Chaz Lucidello and John Barron, and it's fantastic, and it's very balanced, and Americans would get a lot of value out of watching it, and some do, but the people that need to watch it are stuck in a different echo chamber, I'd say. The satire program in Canada was This Hour Has 21 Minutes, or Rick Mercer Report. I've heard of the Rick Mercer Report, I think. I've heard of, but I can't say I've watched it. And one is gone, the other's just painful to watch because it's very bent on an angle of politics instead of chewing on both sides. Yeah, exactly. And we had a really good dude, Sean McAuliffe, and he was it last year? Now, he used to have a program. Oh, what was his program? he had a few, but see, all of these people start up on the ABC, and now the ABC is not quite what it used to be. He used to do satire news programs, and he has now retired. He retired like last year or the year before, which was really, really sad. Well, retired doing satire news. Now he just does like a talk show where he interviews people. So, and we need that satire, you know. CBC is very left-leaning, but some go a tad too far and not a good left, more moralistic pontification, and it feels insulting. Okay, that's interesting. Well, ABC used to be, I guess you could say left-leaning, but only if you know, like, if you're being rational, sort of, like they were rational. That's what I saw in the ABC, and maybe because I'm left-wing, I just sort of go, well, I agree with a lot of what they show. But slowly over the last few years, it's just become like grating because it doesn't feel like it's the same. And, you know, I don't know. Someone was in here a week or so ago and he was going that the world has just gone so far left that it's time the pendulum swings back to the center again. I'm like, you're kidding. The world is so far left. So, I don't know. Maybe the world's just so far left that I just didn't notice. That the ABC was just being rational and not left-wing. No depth, just stating the facts at you, which misses the mark on the teaching. Yeah, well... I don't mind the just state the facts thing. I do like, that's why I like satire, because it kind of puts the facts, but it makes fun of it, and then you get to see whether that's worthy or not, you know? And if it's clever, you know, then that kind of tells you whether something's good or bad. All right, another one that we have for Australia was North Queensland has had heaps of flooding. 1.5 meters came down over a couple of days in one place, and they've got more storms coming.
Flooded communities in North Queensland are once again in the firing line, with more extreme downpours expected.
Because it's been so hot where I am. I'm in a heat wave, 3 weeks now in a heat wave, and I just keep running off to the pool. So I haven't actually been paying attention to anything happening in Queensland. I got evacuated from a flood in Queensland.
A huge system is now spreading west, where a man has been rescued from the roof of his car. Jade Richards has more.
Good afternoon. It took emergency crews more than 2 hours to reach this man who was trapped on the roof of his car with a flooded creek rising around him. The man first called for help around 9 a.m. yesterday morning. He was stuck in floodwaters around Belliando in central Queensland, with the water already up to the windows of his ute.
Now, how? We have a thing here that we say over and over. If it's flooded, forget it. And it means if it's flooded, don't drive into it. And it's like a mantra. And it floods a lot in Queensland. Why would you bother driving into the water at all? It's a mantra. If it's flooded, forget it. They shouldn't be saving people off roofs of cars because people shouldn't be driving in there anyway. Why? Why do they do it? Yet this is Queensland, where people vote against their best interest. One of those, it's kind of like Australia's Texas. What are you? Oh, you're talking about, the satire with the orange man bad. Yeah, oh yeah, that's not satire. No, that's not clever. I agree. I like some effort. So, because that really points out that, like, Saturday Night Live can be quite funny sometimes. And sometimes it can be just a bit orange man bad, and that's cringy. I agree. -21 where you are. Oh, my God. No, wait. That's Fahrenheit or centigrade? Do you use centigrade? Surely you'll use centigrade in Canada. Yay. Well, no, we're totally on the other end of the spectrum here. It's something, give me a temperature. It got up to like 37 today. But we've been in a 3-week heat wave where it's been 35 or over every single day for 3 weeks. No, you're not that. No, you're very similar to us. You recognize metric and stuff, which is great. Canadians have always been very similar to Australia. In kind of like the way we see the world, I guess, you know. Okay, so it says it's 23 degrees right now, but I don't know. It feels like 30 in my room. I'd probably open the window and it might make a difference. But yeah, we've had over 35, up to 42. Some days were 42. There was a few days 40, a lot of 38s and 39s. It's been insane. So it just rained earlier and it's brought the temperature down a bit, which is fantastic. And it's nighttime now, so it's come down to 23. But it's due to go up tomorrow to 32, 31s. Okay, 30s. That'll be nice. I like that for a change. You crank your AC in those temperatures to make the room 17, 18, dread the sun. Oh, yeah, the air conditioner's working overtime at the moment, that's for sure.
We've just got a life jacket on the casualty and we're about to get him in the boat, mate.
Swiftwater rescue crews say they couldn't reach him.
I just don't think the air conditioner can't quite make it through to my room.
For 2 hours. That area was again smashed overnight with 146 millimetres of rain. Similar amounts fell in Townsville and Bowen.
So
and unfortunately,
much water.
those very flood-weary regions are preparing for another onslaught of wet weather. A severe weather warning has been issued for a huge area from Tully to Ayr, where a further 250 millimetres in some parts could fall this weekend. The Premier says preparations are in place. More than 10 floodwater boats have been deployed to the Mackay and Whitsunday areas, and Swiftwater rescue teams are at the ready. There are still immense disruptions to the road network, though. Receding floodwaters have revealed a freight truck that tipped along the Bruce Highway a few days ago. A temporary bridge connecting Ingham to the north will be used again today for emergency traffic only. That community has been isolated, but it is gradually being restocked and reconnected, and power has been restored to more than 1,000 homes there now.
Wow. That is wild. The humidity, yeah, it's usually pretty humid up in Queensland as it is because it's really hot and just like it's tropical. At the moment it's pretty humid here because it rained, but it didn't rain enough. Check this out. Is it going to play the video? Why not play the video this time? Let's see. Oh, it wants to play an ad. Skip the ad. Look at this. There are 102 red-bellied black snakes. They were removed from a single mulch pile on a property in Western Sydney. I don't know how to make it bigger. The reptile locators had expected to remove only 4 snakes that had been seen, but it turns out there were 5 adults and 97 newborn babies in the mulch pile. Isn't that lovely? Those are really poisonous. Those are like one of the most venomous snakes in the world. And it was a Sydney, and I think it's because this was so hot, but he'd seen a couple of them, like he estimated 6 red-bellied black snakes on a large mulch pile, and his wife looked it up and she said, oh, they hang out together, right, when they're going to give birth. And then when they called the snake catcher, he like pulled out a few girl snakes that were pregnant, and then they started giving birth, and they ended up having 102 snakes in the bucket. No, thank you. Even we don't like that here. And then they had to release them about 20 kilometres away or something. I don't know. Here's Beyonce one. I don't want to play this. 3 minutes. Beyonce won Album of the Year for the first time. Oh, that's right. Apparently she's never won before anything. And she got the country album too. And people are very... I noticed there was a lot of ire. People were not happy that she won. I don't know. I used to be very, very involved in music sort of stuff. But these days I just listen to it. And I don't get involved in all of that stuff. Okay, this is turned up. An asteroid. You love the snow because there's no snakes. No big bugs, just winter jackets. I don't know, you got wolves and bears and moose and stuff. They're pretty, like, full on. Polar bears. The cold is... I can't handle the cold. Not that... Like I can, but I can't. Big wolves. Nah. See, but snakes and that, they don't really want to come into your space. It's only when you go into their space. Like if you go bushwalking or something, or like that guy, he was gardening, obviously. He's found them in the mulch pile. But they would rather be left alone, you know? They'd rather be left alone. And same with like redback spiders or funnel webs and stuff. They'd rather be left alone, and it's not like they're chasing us down the street. You know? So as long as you don't go into their spaces or like don't grab something that's been outside for a long time, just grab it with bare hands, like if it's got spots where spiders could hide or something. But, you know, 28 million of us have survived so far, so it's not too bad. You have to head to bed at 6 a.m. your time, but it was good fun watching. Oh, thanks so much for your company. Yeah, please follow so that you get a notification when I'm on again. I'm usually on Fridays, so, yeah, same time usually. But, yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Very much so. Analysing all of the crazy stuff that Donald does. Anyway, you have a great sleep. And I'll see you maybe next time. Yeah, it's good night. Good night for me. Yeah, you're going to go. Yeah, you're going to go to bed at 6 a.m. I've done that. I've had that lifestyle. Good sleep. All right, see you later. Bye. All right, so the last one, is it the last one? I think I've got two stories, two spacey stories. One where an asteroid's attacking us and another one where they found life or something, or the elements of life. So we're going to look at this one where it's going to attack us and then end on the happiest story.
Scientists are closely watching a recently discovered asteroid that is being called a potential city killer. The asteroid, known as 2024 YR4, was first spotted December 27th by the El Salce Observatory in Chile. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory calculates there is a 1.6% chance it will hit Earth on December 22nd, 2032. Astronomers
that's pretty high chance. 1.6.
Say based on its brightness, the asteroid is between 130 and 300 feet wide. So we have a handy graphic on your screen to compare. So the asteroid that struck Earth 66 million years ago and wiped out the dinosaurs, well, that one was just over 6 miles.
All right, so it's due December 22, 2032.
Wide. For more, let's bring in CBS News space consultant Bill Harwood. Bill, good to see you. This asteroid is now rated a 3 out of 10 on the Torino Impact Hazard Scale. So what does that mean? Is this something we need to be worried about?
3 out of 10.
Well, not worried particularly. It just means we need to pay attention to it. You know, this scale goes from 0 to 10, 0 meaning there's virtually no chance of an impact, 10 meaning a climate-destroying, world-destroying sort of impact. Never seen anything like that since the dinosaurs, obviously.
Still, 3 still it seems pretty high.
But there is a slight chance that this one could come by and hit us in 2032, as you said. The tracking is not very precise yet. They'll get another chance to really nail down the orbit when it comes back by Earth in 2028. And by that point, hopefully, the numbers will show that there's zero chance of hitting the Earth. But right now, they're certainly paying attention to it. They want to make sure they can nail down this orbit in time to do something if necessary.
I don't like talking doomsday, but if this asteroid were to strike...
Could we do something in the 4 years? Could we build something to... Maybe we should be building it now, and then if we don't need it to take on that asteroid, we'll at least have it for the next one. Are we building I hope we're building something.
Earth in 7 years, where could it hit? How much damage could it do?
Well, we don't know where it could hit yet because the trajectory is really not nearly well defined enough to make a prediction like that. But the kind of impacts we're talking about with a body of this size and its possible composition, back in 1908, an asteroid hit western or eastern Siberia and leveled like 830 square miles of forest. So it's a big deal. If something like that came down in a populated area, on a big city, for example, it would be truly catastrophic. But it would be a local catastrophe. It wouldn't be something like the rock that killed the dinosaurs. It wouldn't affect the global climate, but it would certainly be a disaster of epic proportions. So we're all hoping that doesn't happen.
NASA's ahead of this. They're ahead of everything. In 2022, a spacecraft successfully pushed an asteroid off course during NASA's first DART mission. Could scientists do this again if they have to?
I don't know. I thought about that. They definitely demonstrated the feasibility of diverting an asteroid, nudging it slightly off course. Of course, the thing there is you want to do it when the asteroid is far enough away that a relatively small nudge can have a big impact on where it ends up going.
And if it's like just a whole lot of rocks that are loosely packed together, there's the chance you could, shake them apart, I guess. But we're only looking at lightly nudging it, but still, maybe that there is a potential that you could cause some to come off.
Whether they could do that in this case based on whatever they learn in 2028, I'm not sure about that, but they would certainly have advanced warning of an impact if it came to that and could warn people away from any affected areas in plenty of time. Not saying that it still wouldn't be a bad day if it hit, but it wouldn't be like it was hitting out of the blue. There would be warning.
Could it do a tsunami?
Every time we see you, we got to ask you about any new information regarding Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore as well. Of course, they're on the International Space Station. Do we have any idea on when they're coming home?
Well, we're starting to. They've had some meetings this week to try to nail down exactly how they're going to do this.
Wait.
And it looking like they're going to be able to get down around March 19th. That's a few weeks ahead of
But I thought they were coming back in February.
Schedule. Basically, it's because they're moving the next crew to the station to a different Crew Dragon vehicle to speed things up a little bit. And if that happens, then the Starliner astronauts and their two station crewmates could get back to Earth in a best-case scenario around March 19th or shortly thereafter. So, it's looking a little better for them to get home, but it's not going to be too much longer now, we all hope.
We'll be watching that. Bill Harwood, thank you.
What happened to the February? They were supposed to come here February. CBS. Let's subscribe to CBS. What happened to the February window? Why aren't they coming back then? Okay, and then this is the last one. This is our good news story. Yes, the building blocks of life were found in samples from asteroid Bennu.
Rock and dust samples collected from a deep space asteroid have been found to contain the building blocks of life. That's according to research that provides some of the best evidence yet that such space rocks may have seeded Earth with the raw ingredients for the emergence of living organisms.
You ready to see the results of the mission?
In 2020, NASA's OSIRIS-REx robotic spacecraft collected samples from asteroid Bennu, a rocky remnant of a larger celestial body that formed roughly 4.5 billion years ago. 3 years later, they were parachuted back to Earth. Here is Bill Nelson, NASA's administrator, during a press conference.
And this mission will help our scientists investigate planet formation for generations to come. And it's going to deepen our understanding of our solar system.
From these samples, two important findings emerged. One analysis, published in the journal Nature Astronomy, found that the samples contained a diverse mixture of organic compounds, and the other, published in the journal Nature, found that the samples contained minerals. Present in the samples were 14 of the 20 known amino acids, along with all 5 nucleobases, the genetic components of DNA and RNA.
Wow.
These organic compounds have all been previously identified in meteorites that landed on Earth, but scientists questioned whether they could have been contaminated by terrestrial sources. In contrast, the Bennu samples were collected directly from an asteroid and were kept pristine, ensuring their authenticity. In the early solar system, planets, including Earth, were pelted by asteroids. So while scientists did not find actual DNA or RNA in the samples, these findings shed a little more light on the role asteroids might have played to make life on Earth possible.
Wow. Okay. That is pretty cool. And that's the end of the news. Wow. Big news show today. So I've got one Fortnite's VBuck mission. So we'll end on that. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick pause scene because I'm not sure my cat has been fed. And then we'll switch over and we'll play the Fortnite. Okay? Okay, I am back. Oh, we've got nothing on the screen. Well, let me move the match over here so I know what I need. It's waiting for Fortnite to come up on the screen. Right, let's get into gaming mode. There we go, got paint up. Okay. Alright, I'm probably just going to play the one game today. I do have to get up early in the morning. I'm going off to play some Battlestar Galactica at my son-in-law's house on board game. I'm going early in the morning. So that's some nerdy fun I'm getting into on the weekends. So I kind of need to get myself prepared for bed soon. It's getting late here. But I do need to do this mission, so it's a perfect spot to finish up with. It's not letting me out, so I can find the mission again. 52 shelter. Alright. And we need to look at shop. Not into football. Though I do have one of these. Not that one though. No, I don't. I do. I own the Rio version of the Whistle Warrior. Okay. I'm sorry, but I don't know who this man is because I really just do not follow sport at all. What is this one? Oh, okay. Right. An eagle. Oh, that's for the birds. Right. And we've got the birds. These birds. Weekend's back in the shop, along with Billy. Green Billy. Wait. I haven't got her? Oh, how long is she going to be there for? Till the 12th of the 2nd. Today's the 7th. Ah. Could get her. I have no support creator, so let's put that in. And I'm supporting Lyndon SG. And you can go watch Lyndon. He streams heaps of different games. He streams American Truck Simulator and Euro Truck Simulator. He streams Fortnite. He also streams like watching wrestling, and he does reacts or commentates for that. And he has a creator code for Fortnite. So I've been using his creator code. And his Twitch channel is Lyndon SG Live. So I can put that out so people can go follow it. I think that will work. No, we got to put the right thing. And I think this will work. Yeah, that's him. He was doing some sort of, he would have been, I believe that might be his trucking company. All right. So, all right, so we've got Serenade, Surf Witch, but I don't like the horns, and so if you could just take the horns off, then it would make it worth it. I'm still kind of saving my V-Bucks in case something comes out. I know there's something they're going to bring out. Okay. Alright. Wow. Some good old skins there. some classics. I don't know, what are all these? These are all gonna get me copyrighted if I play them on YouTube. Spider-Woman. Now, I like this skin, but I haven't watched whatever movie show, whatever it is that she's in. And I kind of like this one. I didn't like it at first, and it was very creepy, but I kind of like it now. The more I see it. Okay. No new skins for me to buy. Well, maybe. I might buy that skin. The what was it? Valentine's skin. Maybe. I've got a few days to think about it. Alright. Discrimination as a ninja. So it's a 52 or 58 or something. So should be able to get away with that. Okay. D2, I think. Or is it this? No. There it is there. Okay. Oh, I better close the mic. Alright, I've got an easy daily there. Just Huss eliminated as a ninja. I am a ninja. And I just have to eliminate Huss on a 52. Is there gonna be anyone else come join us? I don't think it's gonna need all of this. But it won't hurt. Won't hurt to do a little bit. Make it easier on ourselves. Alright, so the tires will fall down there.
Check your map.
I'm not sure what trying is doing. Here we put this down in here. That's good. That works well. Wait, could I literally take out this and they won't be able to cross it? Looks like there's a little bridge anyway. Okay, so they might come up here. Perfect. We've got a pushy one here. That. Oh, it's done some sticky stuff. Two more sticky things. Is there a way we can just trigger this? All right. Someone else. Okay, I may need to mute that person. More players. Very good. Hello. Two minutes, okay. Yeah, well, it's pretty pretty dull because we don't need to really build very much for this one. We don't need to use resources. I can probably go break some things to get... I need a lot of planks. Low on planks. There we go. That looks fun enough. 7, 6, 5. Goody, let's go. And the battle begins.
Here they come! Keep the shelter safe! Protect the shelter until the survivors can be safely extracted. Bonus challenge is now available.
Oh my gosh, my aim's even bad here. He's gonna fall on the ground. Nine left? I don't understand. These people might be unaware, or it might just be the turret that you need fire or water to take those fire huskies out. So the turrets take them out and then they just fall on their knees. What is this guy gonna do? Turret just, and then he'll respawn basically. What? John Cena. Who's John Cena? Oh, maybe that other guy is. Did you watch Royal Rumble? Saw highlights. I couldn't believe John Cena lost to Jey Uso. John Cena. Where's John Cena? Had a huge stream today. So much news. So much news. Is it just going to be more news like that next week? Is it just going to be endless? Like, I really think that Trump is trying to overwhelm us so that we're spread thin, trying to fight all the different things that he's just destroying. So, could well be another week of it. I don't know how long he can keep going. Like, how many more executive orders are there that he can issue? Oh, well, that's that. We've completed our Fortnite match for the night. I'm not playing anymore today. I need to go to bed. I've got things to do tomorrow. Thank you everybody for joining me. I really appreciate the company, especially Potato Panda, who gave me some great conversation during the news. So much news. I'll be back again next Friday, 8 a.m. GMT. That's 7 p.m. if you're here in Australia. So I will see you then. Bye.